Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Once again, it's your boy LT the Don. Just chilling, kicking it back in the dungeon as usual. Hanging, drying some clothes as you can see behind me. Still got the Eiffel Tower sending you them good old signals through the airwaves. So what we doing today is continuing from where we left off last week. This will be part 3. So part 3 is about time travel. We're going to go ahead and integrate this understanding into the livelihood of everyday life. And why would I say that is because let's think about the word desensitizing, right? The word desensitize is to get you used to something over time, gradually, right? We're gonna breastfeed you, if you will. Over time, we're gonna give you VCRs and house phones. Over time, we're gonna give you box TVs and then flat screen TVs. Everything's gonna upgrade, if you will, over time. I remember at one point in time, I want to say back in 2006 and 7, since that's kind of where I started at when I told you I went to Chicago, and that's kind of where one of the backdrops for this entire story. But other than that, I want to take you back to that time period because if you look at cellular communications is going to be, or communications itself is going to be one of the main throttles in understanding time travel or just transformation of information, telecommunications, right? Which means telepathically to communicate, or telepathically to communicate. You have TV or television, which means telepathic viewing. Okay, you have to start understanding words as they are, not as you think them to be have taught to be, right? Because sometimes words mean certain things, and over time you just get used to associating certain words in a general sense instead of actually what it means. But anyway, if we go back to about 2006 and 7, you remember those U.S. cellular phone programs, cell phone. You used to have to pay for nights and minutes of free weekends, and they had all these elaborate schemes to get you to one company or another. But you used to have to get 2-year contracts right before you could even get another phone. And in 2021, that's really no longer an issue because if you want another phone and the latest and greatest phone came out 6 months after you just bought a new phone, you have that ability and opportunity nowadays in this 21st century to do that. But at one point in time, you had to kind of stick with the script. Breaking them contracts cost you more than the phone sometimes. I mean, my goodness, they had their scheme going. But nonetheless, I want to continue on. So we talked about uh, February 10th a lot. That's my birthday coming up. And I integrate that birth date into this entire story because, as somebody who information is important to, information is key to past, present, and future, right? That means the information that you possess, you have to learn how to understand it. All information is important, even the lies, because what you have to understand is within every lie, somewhere lies the truth. And within that lie, you have to understand how to start using your mind. You have to understand how to read the equation. You have to learn how to break down the formula. Nothing should be always handed to you. Even in the Bible, if you look at Jesus Christ when he talked a lot, he talked in parables. When he talked in parables, that means he meant what he was saying. He might have been like a frog is a frog, but one day that frog will lead to another lily pad. Now, he might have said that plainly, but he might have been talking about the frog going from somewhere to somewhere else in a sense that you need to figure that out in a deeper metaphor, right? Just like he talked about the wheat and the tares, or talked about throwing the seeds onto solid ground or good soil, or into shallow ground, or into the thorns and the thistles, so to speak, depending on where he threw those seeds, depending on what type of person you was going to be, right? So you have to understand that metaphors, or to decipher or to decode, is a part of your learning process, right? So nothing is ever been meant to just look at it on the surface or at face value. You're always meant to break things down. And in the generation of today, things are so at our hands and so easy to access for us. We don't like to break nothing down for the simple fact that it just takes too much time in your mind to go through those things. But nonetheless, if you start thinking about these things, you're going to begin to understand how these things go. So I talked about the telegraph, right? I talked about the 1800s establishing a line of information and communication. We talked about the CERN particle accelerator. We talked about the gematria behind that in my name. We talked about the neighborhood, 4408 Meadow Park Drive, right? All of those things are going to begin to make a full view. We talked about 7-Eleven, right? The corner store. Now, 7-Eleven is particular to the seven trumpets, the seven seals, the seven bowls, right? The seven angels, right? Now, one brief thing I want you to notice about 7-Eleven, if you look in the middle of the number 7, you'll see the word Eve, E-V-E, representing Eve of the Garden of Eden, or the mother of all, if you will. If you separate that before that, you'll see the word L, representing God, right? And the last letter you will see on 7-Eleven is the letter N, representing the Hebrew letter Nun, which means heir or offspring. Or the menorah, the seven candles, right? The seven churches, if you will. The seven pillars, right? The seven whores in the book of Proverbs, right?
The 7 pillars of wisdom's house. Proverbs 9:1 says, "Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars."
The seven churches, if you will. 7 is very particular to everything going on. 11 represents a revelation. 11 represents the apocalypse, right? 11 represents the pillars, right? Joachim Boaz, right? Solomon and Hiram Abiff. Apollo, Artemis, right? The divine masculine and the divine feminine. When you put all of those things together, they will begin to break down into something that was always meant to be manifested in your understanding. Okay? So continuing on, we continue to talk about how the 1800s, that line of information and communication is tied into CERN, is tied into the internet and the web that is established today. It turns into everything that is going to become a transformation of human beings, right? We are going to become the logistical transformation of everything that's ever been told or talked about. Except nowadays we're going to come with it with some understanding. So what I want to show y'all is that, remember I showed y'all that on February 10, 2011, Barack Obama was at Vanderbilt Arena in Northern Michigan University, home of the Wildcats. Now I need y'all to understand that the Wildcats represents the wild beast in the book of Revelations. If you never read the Bible or the book of Revelations, the book of Revelations is proclaiming the end of the age. It's prophesying the end of the age and the beginning of something new. It's prophesying the destruction of things so that the building up of things need to come. So one of the main characters, one of the main people in that revelation is likened to a leopard, right? A leopard with the feet of a bear, with the mouth of a lion, right? And so when you put that beast in your mind, this beast mainly is a leopard, right? A wild beast, a wild cat. So anytime I bring up this wild beast, whether it's a panther, whether it's a regular leopard, whether it's a jaguar, whether it's a lion, whether it's a cheetah, whatever it may come to be, is going to represent that beast in the book of Revelations, and you're going to see it in the physical because it represents something metaphysical in the spiritual. So when I show you something physically, and then I show it to you in the world, and I show you that from a spiritual place, you're going to understand why you're going to keep seeing my name, Abraham Lincoln, Mary Magdalene, his Jesus Christ disciples, all of these things pop up. See, what a lot of people don't know is that the Bible exists all the way into this future for a reason, right? Jesus Christ was one of the first people to break the mold, to go against the system, against the society, against the realm of things of this realm. Jesus Christ was one of the first people to understand the things of a dimensional realm and other realms that you cannot begin to understand. See, when you look at that Star of David, it's not just the Star of David, right? You need to start understanding your geometry, right? Because one thing we're going to find out is that all things are going to boil down to being able to do this one thing: to break time and space, to be able to travel beyond the stars. Because you don't understand that you are the stars. When Jesus likened you to an angel and a star and all these metaphors, one day I'm going to tell you how that comes down to being metaphors and literal senses. And when you understand all of those things, it's going to make sense to some people, and to some people, you're just going to have to wait and see. Okay? Now, continuing on, since Barack was at Vanderman Arena on my birthday, right? February 10th, 2011, I told y'all I was working at Burger King on Southwest 66th Street, and I was also working at Imperial Cleaning, because remember I told y'all Jupiter Ascending, the movie, had just came out on February 5th, on that weekend when I told y'all about all those other things going on, transpiring. But I'll get back to that here in a minute. But I was working at Sprouts. Now, when you think about the word sprout is in the Bible. It talks about the root of Jesse. The root of Jesse is the descendant of the biblical Judeans in the Bible, which are the descendants who Jesus Christ will one day come through, and his family would come through. Okay, so the Judeans are the seed or the root of Jesse. They talk about this root that will come up, and that he will have knowledge and wisdom on his shoulders, right? And that knowledge and wisdom will flourish out into the kingdom, that his kingdom will come beyond that. They will prophesy in Jesus Christ. But I want y'all to understand that there are deeper dimensions to every story that you read in, if you read the Bible at all. And I hope to divulge those dimensions in that book, because it's not just about that. See, even the Bible tells you that you are God's. Jesus Christ in the Bible even explained to you that you are God's. You do not understand your God being. You do not understand what the word is actually telling you, because they learn to lead you astray away from the information that belongs to you. That information that is yours, that belongs to you, that information was for you to learn eventually. They stopped y'all from reading, beat you from learning, and only let a small few seeds learn and develop to teach other people, so that one day, when the information was this abundant in the earth, things could happen, right? Now that the ability is here, you're going to begin to discover those abilities if you seek them out, okay? Now, continuing on. Now, I want to show y'all something in this, because how was he at Vanderman Arena, home of the Wildcats, on my birthday, right? And that it was in 2011, and that he was talking about winning the future using communications and the internet, and likening it to the 1860s with the telegraph, Abraham Lincoln, and the Union Railroad, right? All those coincidental conversations in one room on my birthday. Now I'm going to show you how I even found that video at all, because this is how I discovered the time travel sequence that I'm in. The synchronicities, or the synchronic sequences, are going to be everywhere I was at the day I showed up here on February 1st. And not only that, I will be able to backtrack everywhere I lived and be able to see these manifestations of the story being played out. Now, I do talk to Father. I do talk to God. Now, I do talk to myself. It's healthy for you. If you don't, you should. Now, what you should understand in that, people do not understand quantum mechanics. People do not understand the quantum level of thinking. People do not understand quantum communications. See, quantum communications is one of the reasons that TV is telepathic viewing, right? Quantum communications is one of the reasons that we are going to be able to do things that you are yet to understand, okay? Things that I say I've done already, because I have done those things already, okay? And you're going to learn that one day when I go ahead and finish this up. I just got to get it out there. Now, I told y'all about when I found the sunflower wreath in my backyard and how I seen an angel that day on the weekend of February, because that was Jupiter ascending. Because Jupiter and Saturn just had a conjunction, but back in February of 2015, it was Jupiter and Venus having a conjunction. Jupiter representing the King of Kings or the Lord of Lords in Roman mythology, also representing Zeus in Greek
Passed away
mythology.
today at the age of 82. According to the Post, his manager has confirmed the death to The Hollywood Reporter, saying he died today at Jupiter Medical in Florida. Jupiter, Florida.
By their opponents, along with Sensational Sherry, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, and the Human Wrecking Machine, Zeus.
Yeah, grasping at straws. You guys are, yeah. You say that you've got Miss Elizabeth's secret ingredient, yeah, which allegedly makes you see the light. Oh, no. Sensational Sherry, tell these guys what it's really like.
Hulk Hogan, Brutus Beefcake, you say you drink from Miss Elizabeth's secret potion. Let me tell you, you have never been misguided more in your life. Just like you, Hulk Hogan. Just like you fooled all your little puking maniacs. So Miss Elizabeth has you fooled also. She has you seeing things and believing things that are never going to happen. No, your potion is nothing more than a mild raspberry Kool-Aid or whatever it is. It's nothing. Things that are never going to happen, Hulk Hogan. Madness. Madness is in her eyes. Madness with that Kool-Aid, and that's going to destroy.
Like it, yeah! You guys, yeah, with all your Greek mythology, studying your history books, you might as well take those pages and tear them up, throw them up in the air and use them as confetti, yeah! Because you say that Zeus is not a god, but I am here to tell you that he is a modern-day god, yeah. And at SummerSlam, you'll learn that, yeah. We'll take you to school! And I'm telling you, Zeus, yeah, these guys think that you're not their maker. I'm telling you, at SummerSlam, you'll learn that Zeus is your master, yeah! Undertaker. Yeah! Hogan, Brutus the Barber, Beefcake, I'm praying that Miss Elizabeth shows up at SummerSlam. I'm praying to the god Zeus, the man with the eye of madness. Sensational Sherry, tell the whole entire world all at one particular time what might and will happen if Miss Elizabeth shows up at SummerSlam. Tell them all.
Miss Elizabeth, that face that you're so accustomed to looking at in the mirror every morning. Maybe I'll put one of your eyes way up here.
We have some breaking news right now. Actor Tommy Lister has died at the age of 62. The Friday actor was found dead in his home in Marina del Rey today.
LA Sheriff's deputies were originally called out to the house for a welfare check after Lister's associates said they had not heard from him. Officials say no foul play is suspected.
We spoke with Lister's manager a short time ago, and she tells us that while the official cause of death is pending, she believes he died as a result of COVID-19. She says he contracted it about a month ago or months ago and was showing symptoms once again. Officially, the cause of death is unknown, with the LA County Sheriff's Department saying it was likely of natural causes.
And all of those things will come to speak characters in that Christ, okay? Because Christ is the anointed one. The anointed one is the one to bear the soul and the spirit of the universe in one embodiment. Because all of us carry that spirit and soul of the universe in us, but we can only carry so much of a fraction compared to a Christ figure. The Christ figure is the only person who can manifest such an amount of the universe within themselves, within their vessel, within their temple, within their spirit. They become what in the Bible is called the Ark of the Covenant. One of the most powerful tools ever known in the history of the world. We're not going to say in the history of the, no, this is in the history of the world. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been major political figures in the past searching out its power.
The Nazis were obsessed with finding the greatest holy relics of antiquity, including both the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. They saw themselves as crusading Aryan knights who would return the world to a racial purity and a new golden age.
Himmler himself was very steeped in the occult and wanted to recreate the Teutonic Knights. The uniforms, the design, the entire look, the runic symbols, the SS of runes, which were classed as a mystical language that could be used for divination and that created words of power. And there was a lot around power, the idea that they were chasing holy relics like the Spear of Longinus and the Holy Grail. These are like any religious relics. They're items that supposedly hold power. So it's this quest for power, this desperate need to find power in any form.
Templars were massive relic hunters. They dug things up out of Jerusalem, they went into Africa, into Ethiopia, they possibly got hold of the Ark of the Covenant. They possibly got hold of the Holy Grail. Now, if those things ended up in this country, there's a distinct possibility they would have come from the south coast, heading up north, heading towards Scotland, for example. This would have been the perfect place to have stored it on its journey as it headed north.
Right? Seeking its understanding, right? So these are real tangible things that we can come to think about right now. But how did I find out Vandeman Arena, February 10, 2011, that all these things were going to tie into the fact that I traveled to the 1800s, that I was in Chicago at the time that I did it in the early 2000s, 2006, 2007 era, and that Barack would announce his run for presidency on my birthday also. And that a year exactly later from his announcement for his run for presidency on February 10th, that the Christ statue Redeemer in Brazil, Rio, was struck by lightning.
Rio's Christ the Redeemer statue has been struck by lightning during a powerful electric storm, leaving the tip of one of his thumbs damaged. And it's not the first time the iconic statue has sustained such injuries. Only last month, another lightning storm left the index finger on the same hand damaged as well, with the National Weather Service saying it struck an average of 6 times per year. Well, if you...
Right? You're going to have to start putting the sequences together. You don't have to do it. I already did it. But I'm going to express those things to you so you can see the value at the end of the day. Because you can do this with yourself probably, and you'll probably discover some things, right? You will. I can't deny that you wouldn't. And we have the ability right here to do whatever needs to be done. So continuing on, we're going to use Vandeman Arena, February 10, 2011, North Michigan University as our catalyst for these understanding the sequences that I'm a time traveler. Remember, I told y'all it was February 1st, Super Bowl Sunday, that they were doing rituals on the halftime shows throughout the entire Super Bowl. If you think about it, number 24 is Kobe Bryant, right? But in 2015 at the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks, number 24 was Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is also AKA Beast Mode.
Marshawn Lynch, what kind of a day will he have? And he's going to start with Skittles.
Ion is the Hellenistic deity associated with time, the orb or circle encompassing the universe, and the zodiac. The time represented by Ion is unbounded, in contrast to Chronos as empirical time, divided into past, present, and future.
Wilson to Lynch, touchdown!
Marshawn Lynch, you give him a little space, they hit the big pass, and now the running game finally opens up.
Lynch in the backfield, give it to him, Marshawn Lynch, off and running, his biggest carry of the night, his biggest gain.
Look out. The Patriots knew that to start the second half
out of the 18-yard line. Lynch Still going to the 4.
It allows him to make these lateral cuts, and people really good tackler.
Here he goes. Beast mode. The empty backfield. Wilson down the sideline. Lynch makes the catch. And he'll get tackled.
Because that is a code word for we are going to the next level of bringing in the New World Order. And it is time to go in beast mode because the beast is present right now. The beast has been present, will be present, and then he will be yet to come again. Not only Christ was revelated to like that, they said he was, is, and he is yet to come. They liken the beast in the same manner. He was, he is, and he is yet to come. And when you understand what all that means, you're going to understand why the things that are taking place are actually unfolding right now. Yes, these people wrote the book of the Bible. Yes, they took out some doctrines of the Bible so you couldn't get the fullness of the understanding. Yes, there are informations of unsurmountable amounts hidden in different places throughout the world. The Vatican being one of them, and even the United States of America and different customs in the UK hold important actual historical documents of the truth. And the truth is what it is. You just gonna have to understand that. If you don't understand that, you're not where I'm at, and we probably ain't got nothing to talk about. But other than that, Bandam Arena, Barack Obama, gonna be my catalyst. Remember, I stayed on Meadow Park Drive, 4408. Run for presidency, February 10th. 44th president, 2 terms, 4408. February 10th, 2011. Bandam Arena. Now I'm working at Sprouts, right? I'm the root of Jesse, practically, so to speak, because I am a descendant of Jesus Christ. We gonna understand that later, but I'm a direct descendant. That don't mean I'm a descendant. That means I'm a direct descendant. That changes the descendancy right there. That means I skip the line, go back this way a little bit. Then I'm not gonna be able to diverge all that with y'all because you're gonna have to do some of your own homework. But I'm working at Sprouts, right? In Yukon, Oklahoma at the time, right? It's my night job, so I go in there late as you know what, and I leave Burger King, right? And I'm gonna tell you about Burger King too, but when we're looking on this map here, this is off of I-35 and Southeast 66th Street. You see Burger King right there on the corner of I-35 and 66. Now, Burger King plays a part because what does a Burger King represent when we're talking about the Bible speaking? And if you notice directly behind Burger King, you see a place called J.A. King, which is Jah King. Now you see this place right here, Jah Kings. Now Jah Kings or J.A. King represents King Yahweh or Jehovah, which is known as in the Bible, God, the King, El, the King, right? So you have King Jah right next to Burger King or right behind Burger King. And Burger King is a reference to a bull because what do we eat? When we eat Burger King, we eat beef. So there you see it, Yah or Yahweh. Those are two different forms of the Hebrew God, Jehovah. Now, how does this all tie into Yukon or Michigan or Bandam Arena at all? Well, if you look on the street right there, if you look a little bit further up 66th Street, you're going to see Superior. Now, Superior is one of the Great Lakes that you will see in Michigan. Since we know that Burger King is a reference to a bull king or a bull god king, who do we know that is referred to a bull throughout mythology? Well, we know that Apollo had a herd of bulls. We know that Mithras slaughtered a bull. We know that also you have the Apis bull in Egyptian mythology, which is the god king or the son of Hathor. Now, we see in ancient Egypt religion, Apis or Happis is identified as the sacred bull worshipped in the region of Memphis. Now, he is identified as the son of Hathor, the goddess, and he is a primary deity in the pantheon of ancient Egypt. Initially, he was assigned a significant role in her worship, being sacrificed and reborn. That sounds very familiar, doesn't it, to Christ? Now, later, the Apis also served as an intermediary between humans and other powerful deities. Originally was known as Ptah, one of the original gods. Later, Osiris. Remember, we showed you Osiris, the underworld god. And then Atum. Now, the Apis bull was an important sacred animal, since that these gods were represented by this particular bull. Now, if you remember in the book of Exodus, when Moses and the children of Israel were wandering in the desert for 40 years, they were wandering in partly because of the worship of a golden calf. That calf represented those same deities, Osiris, Ptah, and Atum. Now, where else will you see this bull represented at? If you go to the book of Enoch, in the book of Enoch, it also talks about a black bull, a red bull, and a white bull, and many white bulls also. Of course, the white bull will be likened to Jesus Christ. The red bull will be likened to Abel because of his sacrifice and his blood being spilled. The black bull likened to Cain because of his dark heart. This is the metaphor of the Burger King or the Bull King. Now, I told you in the book of Enoch that there was a story of a black, red, and a white bull. Now, in this story, it is a metaphor of God's kingdom to come, God's children that will manifest. It is also a story of the fallen angels and how they mixed and mingled with mankind and created abominations.
Through chapter 90, the second dream/vision of Enoch, the history of the world to the founding of the Messianic kingdom. Chapter 85. And after this I saw another dream, and I will show the whole dream to thee, my son. And Enoch lifted up his voice and spake to his son Methuselah, To thee, my son, will I speak. Hear my words. Incline thine ear to the dream/vision of thy father. Before I took thy mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came forth from the earth, and that bull was white, and after it came forth a heifer, and along with this latter came forth two bulls, one of them black, and the other red. And that black bull gored the red one, and pursued him over the earth, and thereupon I could no longer see that red bull. But that black bull grew, and that heifer went with him. And I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. And that cow, that first one, went from the presence of that first bull in order to seek that red one, but found him not, and lamented with a great lamentation over him, and sought him. And I looked till that first bull came to her and quieted her, and from that time onward she cried no more. And after that she bore another white bull, and after him she bore many bulls and black cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull likewise grow and become a great white bull. And from him proceeded many white bulls, and they resembled him. And they began to beget many white bulls, which resembled them, one following the other, even many. Chapter 86. The Fall of the Angels and the Demoralization of Mankind. Chapter 86. And again I saw with mine eyes as I slept, and I saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose, and ate and pastured amongst those oxen. And after that I saw the large and the black oxen, and behold, they all changed their stalls and pastures and their cattle, and began to live with each other. And again I saw in the vision, and looked towards the heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend and cast themselves down from heaven to that first star. And they became bulls amongst those cattle, and pastured with them amongst them. And I looked at them, and saw, and behold, they all let out their privy members, like horses, and began to cover the cows of the oxen. And they all became pregnant and bare elephants, camels, and asses. And all the oxen feared them, and were affrighted at them, and began to bite with their teeth, and to devour, and to gore with their horns. And they began moreover to devour those oxen. And behold, all the children of the earth began to tremble and quake before them, and to flee from them.
This is your backdrop of a Burger King. Now I'm going to take you to Yukon, Oklahoma. Man, Sprouts was even hitting me hard. Now, as a time traveler, I probably was here for 5 days at the time, 6 days. So this is after that day I'm walking around the yard and I'm seeing an angel in my backyard and all those things like that. And then I seen these Air Force people, right? Now, remember I told you the little boy quoted Ephesians 6:11 to me, talking about putting on a full armor suit, right? Of God, right? And I told y'all how I was drawing that in a notebook the night before I ever met those people, just after I saw a UFO, and then when they left, they had on Air Force jackets. So I don't know if there was any correlations in that, if any manifestation. I told y'all they was doing a ceremony on February 11th where the kids with notebooks could read already, 4 years old, prophesying to soldiers right outside Tinker Air Force Base. And that also on February 11th, I was at a graduation ceremony, or commencement, so to speak, from a secret program in the Defense Department of the military, okay? And now when you understand all of those things come full circle, you're going to start seeing why February 11th, remember I said February 9th through the 11th represents a 3-part course, right? The eve, the day, and the first day, okay? Now, February 11th, you got to think, I think Whitney Houston died on February 11th also. I want to also say Nelson Mandela was released from prison on February 11th also in the 1990s, which is very synchronic to the whole situation because Nelson Mandela has a name prevalent to glitch or a dystopic effect in this realm or in this world that we living in. They call it the Mandela effect. And the Mandela effect is changing up things that you know to be normal, and now you're seeing them as something other than what you remember them as to be, right?
Man, I sure do get a lot of mail from physics fans. Let's see what today's haul is, shall we, Albert? We got another one about the Mandela effect. This is just getting out of hand. What? You don't remember the Mandela effect? The Nelson Mandela one? You don't, huh? Okay, well, the Mandela effect is this pretty crazy idea that pops up from time to time. The name comes from Nelson Mandela, who was a political activist in Africa. He fought against the horrible apartheid system in South Africa and was incarcerated from the 60s to 1990. Some people claim to remember him dying in prison in the 1980s, when in reality, he was released from prison, helped overturn apartheid, and went on to be the president of South Africa for 5 years. He eventually died in 2013. It seems that some people combine their fuzzy and obviously unreliable memories of Mandela's death in the 1980s with his subsequent release and presidency and somehow conclude that we're somehow sliding between parallel universes. Can you believe that, Albert? These people have a variety of ideas about how the transfer between parallel universes occurs, from some sort of natural phenomena to it being caused by the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. Crazy, huh? And that's not the only example people cite. People remember the name of the Berenstain Bear books, that's with an AIN, as once being Berenstain Bears, that's with an EIN. Or a lot of people will swear that in the original version of the Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, that Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father," when what he really said was, "No, I am your father." There are tons and tons of claims like those that you can find on the internet if you want. It's really quite depressing. And Albert, this is just obviously silly. I mean, even if we were actually sliding between parallel universes, and of course we're not, how is it that our memories could survive the change? I mean, memories are preserved in the brain, and those memories would change as we shifted from one universe to the other.
And then there are a few people who claim that our bodies are getting transported to other universes where things were always different. But thinking that that could happen without anyone noticing is really approaching tinfoil territory.
The best proof of this is the Berenstain Bear example. You could go to every library on the planet and ask people to dig out their books, and every one of them would be of the AIN version. People who believe in the Mandela effect would say that this makes sense because either we moved into a world in which the spelling was always right, or because the change occurred everywhere in our universe. But if we move into another universe, we'd also move into one in which our brains always lived, in the AIN universe. And if the change occurred in our universe, you have to remember that books are made of molecules just like our brains. Unless the change was somehow confined to those just particular books, the changes to the brain atoms and the book atoms would have to be the same. We certainly wouldn't remember this differently. So this Mandela effect thing is simply silly and just isn't true. I'm telling you, Albert, I wish people would just get over it and stop sending me mail and email about it.
And it's happening on a mass scale, whether that's in symbols or words, how things are spelled, just a lot of things that seem to have not happened. Or they did happen, but people don't remember it happened in a way that they could have swore it was another way around, right? There's a glitch in the matrix, so to speak. Like, man, we don't remember if it was this way or that way. You know what I'm saying? So February 11th, February 10th, all those days will keep popping up. So after I realized I stayed in Meadow Park representing the Garden of Eden, that I stayed off of St. John, and that I stayed off of Bonaparte representing Napoleon Bonaparte, right? A world figure of his time. And he conquered Egypt and different places like that. And he found the Rosetta Stone. And remember also that Bonaparte on February 10th, 1798 took out the Vatican, right? That's why I'm telling you, February 10th was one of the ways I was going to be able to figure out that, man, maybe this shit's real. You know what I'm saying? I didn't doubt it myself, but I have doubts because of the doubt that you receive from people that don't understand what you're going through. Remember, I was a Buffalo Soldier. I showed y'all the paperwork. Buffalo Soldiers made the official flag of the 10th Cavalry on February 11th, 1911, right? 19, 9, and 11. If you look at the Buffalo Soldier flag, it's likened to 9/11 because it has the two lion dragons, right? And they have two towers. Those two towers represents the twin towers of 9/11. Those two dragon lions represent the planes or the two spirits that are coming into this world, because there's a divine feminine and there's a divine masculine, right? Right? The twin powers, right? And when those two become one, they perverse it and call it androgynousness, but it's not really androgyny. What you have to really understand is that the Bible even tells you that when a man leaves his mother and his father's house, he finds a woman, and that man and that woman become one. That is a union, because that man is no longer one of himself, but he is one with his wife, right? And y'all are perverting the understanding of what all these things are going on out here. That doesn't mean that androgyny didn't exist, because we can see that in the world of today that there are people that exist like that naturally, right? In some type of deformative way. So I'm not taking away from that, but we're talking about spiritually speaking. And there's reasons that all the things have been mixed and mastered and perversed, and we'll get to that eventually. But I want to stick to Sprouts, where I was working at in Yukon. Because after those first 5 days, after the Super Bowl Sunday, Katy Perry, she's talking about, are you ready for a perfect storm at the halftime show? They in Phoenix, Arizona. We know that the phoenix rises out of the ashes, it dies and is reborn again like a fiery phoenix, right? We got to understand what all of those things represent metaphorically, because they had it at Cardinal Stadium. A cardinal is a ecclesiastical prince. A cardinal official, a cardinal ecclesiastical elective papal prince, right? Works for the Catholic Universal Church, right? That's what a cardinal represents. And right outside of Meadowbrook is Willowbrook Elementary School. Well, the Bible talks in the book of Isaiah, or it's the book of Jeremiah, but in one of those books it's talking about a willow. It's talking about a dried up willow, and it's talking about a well-nurtured willow. But we'll talk about what all those metaphors mean later. I'm going to get back to Sprouts right now, because Sprouts is where I start really digging in. Not the fact that I showed y'all that picture when I found myself in the 1800s. I started to find more pictures of myself. And those pictures I found really had me on one already. My birthday kept on showing up in different places because I was listening to that voice, right? The universe, God, Father, right? There is a divine feminine. She's out there too right now, which I don't know. God do got a wife. The universe does have a feminine aspect of itself, just like it has a male aspect of itself, right? And I understand both of them. And I understand that my father led me to the understanding that he even had a representation of himself in the divine feminine aspect, his wife. Okay, but we'll get into that later. So as I'm working at Sprouts, right, the root of Jesse, right, and then you can type that in if you want to see quotes from the Bible to understand that. Just type up sprout, the word sprout, verses in the Bible, and it'll bring up different verses that word sprout, and you'll understand that the sprout is likened to a bloodline that is a descendant of a root of a tribe or a family that is specific to things that are going to be brought about into this
There
world,
shall
right?
come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his waist, and faithfulness the belt of his loins. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together. And a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young shall lie down together. And the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra. And the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea.
It's just going to happen in that way. So I'm working at Sprouts, and I'm knowing the streets mean something. I'm knowing 7-Eleven. I'm starting to notice everything around me means something. Remember 128? That is my gematria number, and 1128 is Jesus Christ resurrected gematria number. And I learned how to figure out that the time machine was associated with those numbers in some type of way, shape, form, or fashion. And I showed y'all that on my part 2 video, so y'all have to go watch that video if y'all didn't get into that. But either way it go, continuing on. So I'm working at Sprouts. I'm beginning to know that everything is everything. And I drove to work one night, and I got off the highway, I-44. Remember, I-44. I got off the highway on Garth Brooks Boulevard. I get off on Garth Brooks, and I realized that the first street you pass that's intersecting to get on or off the highway going to this neighborhood is Andrew. Now, what you have to do is, in the Bible, understand that Jesus Christ had disciples, 12 of them, right? These 12 disciples represent the Olympians, right? Like the 12 gods of the Greek mythology. They represent the 12 months in the year. They represent the 12 zodiac signs on the zodiac chart. Therefore, they represent the universal manifestations in a physical sense, right? And we're going to talk about all those things eventually. That's later on. But I knew this when I first got here on February 1st. I started knowing that stuff just like in an instinctual way. I didn't study this stuff. I didn't learn this stuff in no type of way like I went to college for it. I just started knowing how to see. I already was kind of interested, you know. I grew up a certain way, so I was always digging and diving in. I was doing more than the average person probably would in the category of things I believed in, because most people probably just participate. They don't really do no homework or involve themselves in no actually learning what they really following. But I did that all my life naturally, right? That was the one thing about me, I think, that saved my life when I went through the portal when I ended up here in the first place, because I did believe. And then at that moment, it was no longer I believe. I knew then. It's like, so I don't have to believe nothing no more. I know things, right? And those things that I know, nobody can take away from you what you know. It just is what it is. So we're going to continue on. So I noticed Andrew was right there. Now, what you have to realize is about Andrew in the Bible is that he's very specific. Andrew shows up in the Bible when Jesus Christ was about to feed 5,000 people, right? And Jesus Christ told Andrew, Andrew saw a little, it wasn't enough food to feed everybody. But you know, Andrew saw a little boy with 2 fish, right? He saw a little boy with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. He took those 2 fish and those 5 loaves of bread to Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ multiplied that among more than 5,000 people. 5,000 was the male representation of people that were present, but there were men, women, and children present at the time. Now, what is the specific thing about that story? 2:10 again. February 10th is going to pop up right there. How? Okay? Andrew was hung on a cross. Not a T cross. He was hung on a cross in the shape of an X, right? The X is a Roman numeral number 10, right? We remember Jesus was living in the Roman times when Rome was over rulership of the known world, right? So the Roman numeral X is a 10. The little boy had 2 fish. There you go. 2:10. The little boy had 2 fish. Those 2 fish represented 2 ages. Those 2 fish represent a death and a resurrection. Those 2 fish represented the age of Pisces and the death of the age of Pisces and the coming in of the age of Aquarius, because that will be the time of resurrection from a physical death, a spiritual death, and a death of every other kind that we are suffering through right now. Okay? So Andrew was hung on an X, which is a 10. 2 fish. The little boy represented the age that was going to be carried in, because he was going to carry in that age. He was bearing those fish in his hands. The loaves of bread, the 10 loaves or the 5 loaves of bread represents the harvest. Because when you make bread, you have to harvest wheat. And those loaves of bread, those 5 loaves of bread represent the 5 of the 10 virgins. Remember, 10 of them had oil, 5 of them had oil, and 5 of them had no oil. They all had lamps to carry light, but the lambs had oil in their lamps. The goats had no oil in their lamps. They had to ask the lambs to borrow some oil. And this oil I'm giving y'all right now is the same oil eventually people gonna be asking for. I ain't gonna be able to give it to you if you ain't trying to give it right now, okay? So that little boy and that parable that Jesus Christ was talking about was showing you 2:10 right there. And that February 10th is very specific to Jesus Christ because it is his birthday. And I'm going to show y'all that Jesus Christ's birthday is on February 10th in the Bible eventually. Okay? But that's how I start figuring Barack and them out. I start figuring, remember I showed y'all that Donald Trump, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, all them, the last time everybody was together alive with Kobe Bryant was on my birthday.
A sold-out American Airlines Arena has the Heat welcoming the Los Angeles Lakers to town. And you look at the Western Conference standings, Lakers still on the outside looking in. And then a victory on a place where the home team is 21-3. Bosch inside to Wade, finds Haslam, and Haslam gets the first bucket of the game.
They can still have a major impact on every game. It's just not the same.
Nash off 1 foot. And Nash has been saying that he's had to make big adjustments to his game. Here's where the Heat obviously excel, and James just barrels his way right into Nash.
Bad to score. If he's being guarded by 2, like right there, to me, it's single coverage. You got to go at him. Great spin move by Bryant. And if he's double covered, made the right play. I think
it's going to be a wonderful celebration for the Laker fans, but as you mentioned, the last time they all came together was back in January, and it was in profound sadness with the loss of Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and those 7 others. But tonight, the Laker fans can unite in joy as they celebrate a title. Under a minute remaining. And what a way to close out this championship season. As you see Davis and James, it's all coming out. You know, to me, one of the great pleasures of this job every year is watching they become little kids again. When that title is realized, when it's finally over, and all the work, all the sweat, all the practices, all the travel, and in this case, all this time in the bubble ends up with what they all set out for as their #1 and only goal.
You know what? Each guy invested, and LeBron is thinking, I promised this guy this. I told him that things would be different. And to finish it off, they all should be extremely proud.
Well, Lennox puts it up and in. Caruso will bring it up. LeBron James already celebrating. I'm sure they are back in Los Angeles again. Dwight Howard knocks down a 3-pointer. There's the exclamation point. And the Heat will just bring it up. And the Lakers will win Game 6. And now Cook can just dribble it out.
And J.R. Smith already shirtless.
Final seconds here in this NBA season. The respect from those two. And that's it. It's over. This historic 2020 NBA championship belongs to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers conquer the bubble, and banner number 17 will soon hang in the rafters.
With 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, the star of stars of the greatest players in the world was the 2002 MVP, Kobe Bryant. Kobe.
At a Miami Heat versus the Lakers game, right? And now the Lakers win the championship this year in 2020, playing against the Miami Heat. And that LeBron not playing for the Heat this time, he's playing for the Lakers this time. I want y'all to start putting the sequences together. But y'all couldn't do it, but I did it for you. Because this is a story. This is esoteric. This is some stuff being done that is, boy, I don't know who in trouble, but I'm pretty sure I got a good roster of people that are gonna have some explaining to do. Either they was doing something for a greater good that we could not understand, or they was doing something and we finna get at it. You heard me? Oh yeah, there's some people that's gonna get got at. We know somebody responsible for certain things, but who's responsible on what side? What y'all gonna have to understand it is that all things, good or bad, have 2 sides to it. It's the tools that you have can be used for good or bad. You can use guns to kill good people, or you can use guns to kill bad people. Right? It's all on how you use it. When the angels come, if you want to be a bad angel, you ain't gonna be able to be one when that type of thing come again. Because the angels are gonna be the angels again. See, God got a pact with angels that y'all don't know nothing about. It's only us humans that are getting played in this whole perspective because we're not learning. We're not trying to realize nothing. So God will play any of the angels against you however he see fit. Good angels. You can't really call none of them necessarily bad. Angels have roles, jobs, duties. things that they have to fulfill and accumulate to. The ones that are bad angels or the fallen angels, those are the people that's walking around here on this earth right now. Have no idea where they come from, where they been, what they done, the amount of greatness they could achieve, the amount of power that they could have, the amount of life that you cannot express in your own thoughts. That's us walking around here. Well, maybe not me. I understand myself a little bit better than probably most people I'm around on a daily basis. I'm not going to deny everybody. You know what I'm saying? I ain't going to say everybody dumb, or everybody sleep, or everybody's this or that. Everybody has something about themselves that they need to go ahead and discover and figure it out. Now back to Sprouts, right? How did I figure out Barack so much on February 10th? To even look up Bandom in the Ring, right? Okay, because I know streets, geometry, right? I know dimensional planes now in a different way. I understand words and meanings, right? And I know that if I can't understand the word, I can find it real quick. And I will put these things together because if I was a time traveler, there's going to be some evidence because I have the knowledge and the know-how. If I do not have what I told you I needed to show up here in the first place. But I do have the knowledge and the know-how and the understanding to find my way back to those understandings, right? Ooh, this shit gonna get deep. I'm talking about this shit gonna get deep. Okay, but we continuing on, people. I'm just getting started, you feel me? We 34 minutes in, but bear with me. So now that I know to look for streets and geometry and geography and that this story gonna keep playing out no matter where I go, work, live, right? 4408 Meadow Park Drive, Garden of Eden, aka St. John and Bonaparte looking out for me. And one thing about Napoleon Bonaparte also, he owned what you call the Louisiana Purchase. You have to understand how important the Louisiana Purchase was to biblical references or references of historical proportions even before he owned that real estate. Because the Great Plains are very specific to some biblical things y'all don't know yet, but that's another story one day, okay? But I knew that through just St. John and Bonaparte off 10th Street, remember the number 10 is the completion of a celestial cycle. The number 10 represents the 1 and 0 algorithmic numbers, the binary codes of the universe, right? Or the matrix of this order, anyway. And when we turn those 1s and 0s into quantum 1s and 0s, that's why quantum computing and quantum mechanics is going to take us to where I've already been, okay? One day. It's going to take everybody to another level of things, another level of understanding things. But okay, continuing on. So I'm driving from Midwest City, Meadow Park, St. John, 10th Street, and I'm going to work. I'm going to Yukon. I get off I-40, I-44, whichever highway it is. I think it's I-40 or I-44. But I get off Bar Brooks. I see Andrew. And the next night, I do it again. But I'm like, you know what? Since Andrew is right there, I'm like, let me go behind the store. Let me see what street names is behind the store. And that's when this thing started speaking to me. When I saw those street names behind the store, that's when it started hitting. Because you go behind the store, you got street names like Sequoia, right? Sequoia is like one of the first streets you go down. You go down Sequoia, Sequoia will take you to Holly. Remember Holly and Hollywood and how I showed y'all that represents Jesus Christ being hung on a tree or hung on the cross to be pricked, right? Just look up the word Holly and the word Hollywood and put the metaphor of Jesus Christ in there. You'll be able to understand if you're having common sense and not playing around with this, okay? Now, Sequoia in America is the tallest tree, right? There are the tallest trees in America. Now, what you have to understand is that is a representation of the Garden of Eden. Because one thing I've seen as a time traveler, I have been to the Garden of Eden. I have seen the tree of life, and I have seen the tree of knowledge of wisdom of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of wisdom and good and evil is beautiful. The tree of life is not so beautiful. But one thing about those things is one of those trees is a portal. And I ain't gonna say nothing else. I'll let you figure out which one it is. But one of those trees has something to do with a portal. And that's the facts, right? I seen Adam. I seen Eve. I seen a betrayal of all kinds. And this thing is a little bit more futuristic than some of y'all might can understand right now.
The Tree of Time. The Tree of Time is an ancient tree located in the spirit world, centered between the two spirit portals that lead to the north and south poles of the mortal realm. During harmonic convergence in 9829 BG, Avatar 1 imprisoned Vatu in the tree to prevent darkness from enveloping the world. Welcome to the Imagi. In today's video, we're going over the history of the Tree of Time. Before we begin, we publish new content every week, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. In 9829 BG, after permanently merging with Rava during harmonic convergence, Wan used the four-bending arts to subdue Vatu and trap him inside the hollow of the Tree of Time. 10,000 years later, in 171 AG, Unalaq visited Vatu at the Tree of Time and apologized for his failure to bring back Avatar Korra to aid in opening the Northern Spirit Portal. Vatu informed Unalaq that he had not necessarily failed him yet, as Korra was alive and currently in the spirit world. Korra met Vatu, who was still imprisoned in the Tree of Time, shortly after entering the spirit world. Threatening to destroy Janora's soul, Unalaq forced Korra to open the Northern Spirit Portal, causing a massive release of energy which weakened the barrier that imprisoned Vatu. Just before harmonic convergence, Korra attempted to reseal the Southern Spirit Portal to no avail, and witnessed as the influx of spiritual energy resulting from the phenomenon allowed Vatu to break free from his bonds and escape imprisonment from the Tree of Time. After her connection with Rava and the past avatars was severed by the Dark Avatar, Korra was escorted by Tenzin to the Tree of Time. Due to the tree's connection to cosmic energy, it retained all memories, and Korra saw and subsequently remembered events of her past, which had been suppressed by her amnesia. Using the energy inside the tree, Korra was able to channel the energy within herself and connect with the cosmic energy of the universe, allowing her to summon a massive astral projection of her spirit. Shortly after, numerous dark spirits charged at the tree in an attempt to retrieve Korra's body, but were held back by Tenzin, Bumi, Kia, Bolin, and Mako. Desna and Esko also arrived to assist in subduing the dark spirits, but were soon driven inside the Tree of Time along with the others. Before the dark spirits could completely enter the hollow of the tree, Korra's astral projection returned, bringing with it a ray of light that caused the dark spirits to disappear. With Vatu's influence absent from the spirit world, the Tree of Time and the surrounding area were basked in light, attracting many peaceful spirits to live in the area. 2.5 years after Korra lost touch with the Avatar spirit due to mercury poisoning at the hands of the Red Lotus, she came to the Tree of Time to meditate in its hollow. However, her meditation was interrupted by several spirits who were debating among themselves whether or not she was the Avatar. Upon verifying her identity, they approached Korra inside the tree's hollow, wondering where she had been. After Korra relayed what had befallen her, she admitted that she had hoped meditating inside the Tree of Time could help her reconnect with Rava, as she had seen many visions the last time she was there, though was unable to see anything at that moment. When a spirit offered to help, Korra declined, believing that she needed to figure it out on her own. She left the Tree of Time in the spirit world and began to wander the physical world alone. Sometime later, Korra tracked the spirits leaving Republic City's spirit wilds to the base of the Tree of Time. She asked them to help her defend the city against Kuvira, who is perverting the spirit power to attack other humans. After a dragon eel spirit refused her plea, all the spirits vanished one by one. Legend. Legends state that the Tree of Time's roots bind the two worlds together and is a source of great spiritual energy. In the era of Rava, the ancients used to commune in the hollow of the tree to connect with the great cosmic energy of the universe, before Vatu was imprisoned in the tree by Avatar Wan. A book in Wan Shi Tong's library recalls the legend of Vatu's imprisonment in the Tree of Time. Elders believe that Vatu is trapped by a strong spiritual barrier from which he cannot break free, provided that the two spirit portals are sealed by the arrival of harmonic convergence. If the portals were open during this time, the amplified spiritual energy caused by overlap of the two portals would be enough for Vatu to use in breaking the bonds that restrain him, leaving the mortal realm vulnerable to becoming enveloped in darkness.
But just know that futuristic is everything to do with the universe, man. I'm telling you, this universe didn't come out of nothingness, even though it did. And I'll talk about that later, man. This is so great. It just don't make sense. So how did I start figuring this out? I already knew secret societies was a part of this. I knew that Skull and Bones was a part of this because George Bush family becomes from the Skull and Bones, and the Taft family comes from the Skull and Bones. And remember, my last name is Taft. And if you go to Yale University, even if you drive around the streets and the geography there, you're going to find my name, Lawrence Taft, surrounded by the Skull and Bones University. You're going to find Abraham Lincoln. You're going to find St. Mary and the word gene, because my genes come from that blood pool. And you're going to find Mary, you're going to find Gene, you're going to find Taft, all these streets. You can type them in, New Haven, Connecticut, boom, and you're going to find my name there. So when we look around the University of Yale, or the home of the Skull and Bones, the secret societies that we talked about, who paid for the time travel program in some manifestation of not, because a lot of political leaders and political figures that run legislation or pass legislation have graduated out of this society. So going forward, what does that mean, and how does this story play itself out? Well, we're going to look at the street names. These street names will portray a story of even how I said I got here to some degree or another, and we'll point those things out. So the first street you're going to see is Ronan Street. Right there by my name, Lawrence, you'll see Ronan. Now, what does Ronan stand for? It stands for Little Seal. Now, Ronan was also a saint, Saint Ronan of Lacron, and he was accused of sorcery and lycanthropy. Now, when you call that lycanthropy, that's saying he was transforming himself into a werewolf. So therefore, you get that dog-faced soldier thing once again. Remember, George Bush was at Fort Stewart, Georgia, talking about the dog-faced soldier. So there you go. You get that dog-faced story again out of St. Ronan. The next street you're going to see is Whitney. Now, Whitney means White Island. Now, that is a reference to the floating island from Greek mythology of the story of Artemis and Apollo once again. Now, you're going to keep seeing Artemis and Apollo pop up because they are very strategic to this story. Who is Apollo? Apollo is a part of the woman seed who slayed the serpent seed. And you'll see that story play out over and over again. I believe I talked about that in one of my introduction videos about the story of Apollo. So you have Whitney, which means White Island. That is also a reference to the kingdom of heaven, which is a floating city or a floating island coming down out of the sky in the book of Revelation 21 and 22. That is also a reference to Whitney Houston, because when you talk about Whitney Houston, it's one very particular thing she did before she died, and that was take a trip to Israel, which is she calls the homeland, or our people, the tribe of Judah, the Israelites, call homeland. Now, they liken her to Queen of Sheba, which would give her this title of Queen, or Queen of Heaven representation. The next street to confer that is the street Temple. The temple is the house of God, or a reference to the kingdom of heaven also. The next street you'll see is Edward. Edward means guardian or protector. Now, that is also a variation of my name Alex, right? Which means guardian of the galaxy or the universe. Now, Bishop is the next street. A bishop is a senior clergy, usually in charge of a diocese or empowered to confer holy orders. So he belongs to a church, if you will. And also, you want to think about Bishop. Bishop is also a character off of X-Men who coincidentally is a time traveler. Continuing on, the next street you'll see is Humphrey Street. Humphrey means a warrior bear cub of peace. Now, you're going to see this play out in the Bible in different manifestations. If you remember, the wild beast of Revelations walked around as a leopard, but he had the feet of a bear. You see what I'm saying? So this bear cub of peace is really a representation of Christ. And we'll continue on and we'll break that down as we go. The next street you have is Pearl Street. Now, one thing comes into mind when I think of pearls in the Bible, and that's the verse out of Matthew 13:45 verse through 46. It illustrates a great value of the kingdom of heaven. And it says, again, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who when he found one pearl of great price, he went and sold all he had and bought it. Which is to say, the kingdom of heaven is like those pearls. So seek the kingdom of heaven in that manner, and it'll be the greatest value that you can ever value. The next street is going to be Lincoln Street. Now remember, I told y'all Abraham Lincoln is going to continue to pop up throughout this story because he is a staple or a pin of where I started my research to learning that I was a time traveler, because the 1800s or the 1860s and the Civil War will be a staple, and able to find pictures and different things like that to be able to discover that visually I was at least able to see that I was present in that time period. Continuing on, so Abraham Lincoln will pop up more and more. Remember, I was born on 24th and Lincoln, between Lincoln and Kelly Boulevard in Prince Hall, Eastside, Oklahoma City. So you get that Abraham Lincoln popping up every time. And he's not going to pop up every time, but anytime there needs to be a confer or a confirmation, he will be present. The next street you have is Prospect, which means the possibility or likelihood of some future event occurring. Following the street Prospect, you have Foster. Now, to foster is to nurture something or to support or care for, or what you would know as a foster child, which means someone who is cared by a family not of their natural blood. Prospect is the possibility or likelihood of some future event occurring. The next street you will see is Nicole, like Nicoll, which derives from the word Nicholas, which in Greek means people of victory, which you know Victoria or Nike represents Lucifer, right? And then also you have the Nicholas breaking down into the Nicolaitans, who listened to the doctrine of Jezebel in the book of Revelations, and God had that against them because they were following the way of the harlot or the prophetess, in which God spoke against. Now you'll understand that later when you understand the queen or the harlot as his wife. The next street is by the ash tree, which means Nash. Nash means by the ash tree. Now the ash tree will pop up in mythology under the Norse mythology, and it is the tree of Gradasil, the world tree, which the Viking mythology grew on an island surrounded by the ocean. Now in the depths of which the world serpent lay. So the serpent lay at the depths of this tree. Now this ash tree trunk reached all the way to the heavens. Now you gotta think about that. You have the tree of life, or the tree of the world as called by Norse mythology, right here in this entire story. Continue to find references of the kingdom of heaven. You will continue to find references of the temple. You continue to find references that are biblical in nature, because they are breaking down a continued story that is being told. And you will continue to see that as I continue to break down these street names. So I'll continue on from here. The next street that you're going to see is Clark. Clark means a scribe or a secretary, or a scribe within a religious order. Now this has everything to do with a religious order of some sort, or some society of a secret nature of some kind, as we continue to look into this. Now the last three streets that you're going to find surrounding Yale University and my first name Lawrence in New Haven, Connecticut, home of the skull and bones, you have Olive Street. We know that the olive street or the olive tree represents holy water, because that is what they use to make holy water, is the olive. And we know that the olive branch represents peace, right? Next after that we have Lion Street, which is Lyon, which in Middle English means lion. We know that Jesus Christ represents the Lion of Judah, right? You'll see it often on the Jamaican flag representing Jesus Christ. We also have Bradley Street, right? Bradley means broad meadow, and anytime you see a meadow or a valley in a peaceful nature or manner, or a beautiful nature or manner, it is representing the Garden of Eden. And next you have Street John, St. John, right? And we know that St. John is the one who wrote the book of Revelations. We know that John was also one of 3 apostles that was present when Jesus Christ, when he was transfigured into his fullness of his nature. Now we move on to the next part of Yale University, where you will find my last name, Taft Street. Now this part, if you want to notice, you see the old Foxhorn Road, and then it branches off into Rousseau Avenue. Now I want you to notice this as a branch, if you will. You have the stem or the root, and then the root turns into branches that branch off into names of streets. Now when we look at this, I want you to notice this in a manner as the root of Jesse. Now we're going to point this out in the street names, and even as we read these names of these streets, in some way, shape, fashion, these street names are going to represent some form of past time in my life in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And we'll just go ahead and bring those things up when we come across those street names. Now, the first street you're going to notice is Old Foxhorn Road. Now, we know that the word fox, when you break down the letters in a number chart to give letters numerical values from A through Z, you're going to number 1 through 9. Now, when you number 1 through 9, you just go in a row from 1 through 9, A, B, C, all the way down, and you'll begin to form letters in that. Now, the only letters that form an actual word is the number 6, and the number 6 spells fox. So you get the 666 O-N Road. Now, O is, of course, a part of the number 6, so you get it 4 score. 6, 6, 6, and 6. That is to put a stamp on the threefold sixes, because we know that the 6 represents the Son of Man. We know that on the 6th day, Adam was formed and brought to life. We know that 6 represents 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, which is the makeup of man. So we get that on Foxhorn Road. And then the last letter but not least is N. So you get the 666 and the number or the letter N, which is the number 5, representing not only the 5th age, which we are coming into now, it also represents the letter N. Now the letter N in the Hebrew context is none. The word none represents to continue. It represents offspring. It represents a heir. So right there, even in the word esoterically, and you have to remember that Masons built America. Black people built America. We made roads, forts, streets, you name it. So these names will be particular in such a manner, esoterically speaking. Continuing on, the next street you're going to see as we branch off into Rousseau is Michael. We know that Michael is the highest angel in heaven. Michael cast out the serpent seed, or the dragon, if you will, Satan, if you will. And then you're going to also see Rousseau. Now, we have Michael guarding the root of Jesse. That makes plenty of sense when we're speaking biblically. Rousseau represents red. Red hair, a red person, or a ruddy person. Ruddy means red complexion, okay? And as we continue on, we're going to also break down the fact that when you look at the word Rousseau and its surname, it represents Russia. Now, this Russian family with the last name of Rousseau, coat of arms has a moving star, or a comet, if you will, a shooting star as their coat of arms. We know that representing the root of Jesse wise, you're going to get those coat of arms because of the simple fact is that when Jesus was born, we know that he was accompanied by a moving star. Now, earlier on, I expressed to you that that moving star was known as the planet Jupiter, which in Roman mythology is known as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We also know that Jesus Christ carries that representation in that title as well. Continuing on. So Rousseau means red. It also represents Russia, and it also represents a shooting star or a comet because of the coat of arms from the surname, right? So we have all of those things pointing down the stem of the root of Jesse, right? 666.5 representing the 5th age and representing 6 in the threefold as the Son of Man. We have Michael guarding the gate, or we have Michael guarding the root of Jesse. And as we continue on, we'll just keep going from there. You'll see Ann Street. Now, Ann is the grandmother of Jesus Christ, and is also the mother of Mary, who is Jesus Christ's mother. Real simple. Now, Anne also represents the word favor or grace. So we know that through grace and favor that these things will come. The blessings, the promised land, the kingdom of God, the new kingdom of this world. Continuing on, you will see another street, St. John, or John Street, right? We know that John will continue to pop up because he is the revelator. He is the one that has written the last book of the Bible, as we know, the last prophecies that will bring into the end of the age and to the new millennium, right? So we know that John will continue to pop up. John was also Jesus Christ's beloved. Jesus Christ spoke of John and said that one of you shall live to see the kingdom of heaven come. And some people believe that that person was John. We also remember that I stayed off of St. John in Midwest City, one of the 3 apostles who saw Jesus Christ transfigured. Continuing on, we have Laura Street. If you look off to the far right, you have Laura, which is a feminized form of laurus, which means a laurel plant. Now we know that the laurel wreath or the laurel plant represents a crown of a victor during the Greek or mythological times when they played the Olympic Games, if you will. We know that the Olympic Games were started and created after the god Zeus and Apollo. So there you have Laura Street. Continuing on to tie even that together, if you look down just a little bit, you see Delia Street, right? Now, Delia in the Greek meaning is a island of Delos. Now, we remember this. The island of Delos also represents Dallas, like Dallas, Texas. Dalet, like the Hebrew letter Dalet, right? And that represents a gate or a door. And we also understand that the island of Delos, once again, is the floating island and home of Apollo and Artemis. So you will get those things to pop up, and you will get to understand the representation of Artemis and Apollo later on. The next street we have will be Fox Ridge, which means the mountain of the fox, right? Which is also 666. That's the threefold 666, right? And we'll become to understand what that means because we know that that is the mark of the beast, right? And we also understand that this number must have an in-depth meaning or importance because it says this number means to represent the one who has wisdom to be able to understand its meaning and its number. Continuing on, the root of Jesse, Russo Avenue, right? So we have the next street, Joffrey, right? That means a piece of a stranger, right? In the sense that when we were put in bondage, we would come to a strange place. We would worship a strange people, speak a strange language that we did not know, and we would serve a stranger in a strange land, right? America. Now, the next street will be Savoy. Now, if you look into this word Savoy, you will come to find a princess who was from Italy or Rome. Her name was Mafalda of Savoy. Now, what does she represent in this root of Jesse? And how can we see what this is explaining to us? Well, for one, Mafalda was a spy, right? And her word is a variation of the word Matilda, which means battle mighty. Now, she was a spy who was battle mighty. If you read in the Bible, there was a prostitute or a whore who had hid the spies of the Israelites who went to look into the land of Israel to spy on the giants, right? And this is in the Bible if you don't know about this story. But this prostitute or this harlot's family was spared when the Israelites came to take over the land. And she will become a part of the descendants of Judah, right? She will become a part of the descendants of the Israelites and who will become later down the road King David and his descendants, King Solomon and his descendants, all the way down to Jesus Christ, so on and so forth, right? So we have this Italian spy who is from Rome, whose name is Battle Mighty, right? In the midst of the battle, right? She's hiding these 2 spies, right? and she was saved from the battle because of this, right? Now we have also, who is her family? What is her background, right? She's a Roman-born princess. She represents a harlot, right? So this is the book of Revelations. Her husband's name is Philip. We know that Philip represents a lover of horses. We know that when Christ comes back, he will come back with his angels accompanying on white horses. But Philip of Hesse was also known as a Nazi, right? So we have this Nazi World War II theme going on here, because we know that World War II was very strategic to the birth of Israel and it becoming a nation state, fulfilling Bible prophecy, right? Now, when she was finally discovered, because she was spying on the Nazis, right? Her kids were taken from her and taken to the Vatican. We know that the Vatican represents the harlot church. Her husband was taken to Bavaria and held captive there. We know that Bavaria is where the Bavarian Illuminati began, right? So you get all these correlations tied up because these are the responsibilities of how things came to be. Whether manipulated, deceived, places traded, and you got the man in the iron mask thing going on here. No matter who the real king is or the real family is, you're going to find this theme in the root because this is what has happened. Continuing on. That's how Jesus became white eventually. Continuing on. Now, who are her parents? Now, her parents were Victor. We know that Victor represents victory. We know that victory represents Victoria, and Victoria is the goddess Nike, which there again, she carries the torch. She is the light bearer, representing Lucifer, right? The light bearer. So you have Victor or Victoria, and his name, middle name, is Emmanuel. We know that Emmanuel represents Jesus Christ. We know that that is his name in heaven, right? That means Christ with us. Next, his last name is Victor Emmanuel III. So there you go with the third, giving you the triune Trinity, the Holy Spirit, the Father, and the Son. Holy Spirit being wisdom, wisdom being the wife or the bride of God. If you don't know that, you'll come to understand that one day. Or do your homework. Continuing on, her mother's name. Her mother's name is Elena, which means bright, shining light. Therefore, you have this Lucifer theme once again because she is the light bringer or the light bearer, right? And then her last name is Elena of Montenegro. So they're telling you that these people of light, this family of light, this trinity of light, these bloodlines or descendants of Jesse are from a black mountain, because Montenegro means black mountain. That's just to let you know that when we standing on that mountain 144,000 strong, plus billions of unnumbered and named people, right? Who are going to be numbered and named, and they're going to have the seal of God, and they're going to also rock those white garments that y'all going to have to really understand what those really represent. But continuing on, you're going to find these all in New Haven, Connecticut, and East Rock, right? We know that Jesus Christ represents the chief cornerstone, right? That was cast out, right? He represents the rock. Continuing on. The next street you will find is Taft Street, right? Taft means a house surrounding a land owned by a family. So when you think of the house of God or the temple of Solomon or the representation of the house of God where the Ark of the Covenant was housed, it was kept in Jerusalem, right? Israel. That is a promised land, a homestead, a homeland with a house and land surrounding it owned by a specific family, right? And we're going to find out who that lost family is sooner than later, because these stories are going to continue to break down in such a manner that they will manifest the understanding of what's really going on. And so there you have in my last name on these streets on the root of Jesse, Taft, right there, okay? Continuing on. Next you have Pinehurst. A Pinehurst is a pine wood or a grove of pine trees, right? Now we know that in mythology and ancient times all across the world, we know that the pine cone represented the pineal gland, right? The third eye. We know that we have this written all over ancient walls and hieroglyphics all across the world with these winged beings or these angelic beings carrying these pine cones representing the pineal gland or the third eye. And also, when I first joined this program back in the 1990s, about 7 years old, I want to say probably a year or so in, I was introduced to a location in New Jersey where in the woods they had these booths or machines, these simulators. Now, some of these machines or simulators would simulate time. They would simulate being able to manipulate time. They would simulate dimensional realities. And through this machine, I was introduced to certain time travel aspects of things. Continuing on. Couldn't find an exact representation of the simulators and what they looked like in the field, but I remember that they did remind me of those old green electrical booths that you used to sit on with your friends back in the day. Kind of had that vibe to it. And one of the distinct things I remember about it is its cold frigidness. And I guess it was probably to keep the software running good or something like that. But in the middle of this pine woods or this pine forest or this pine Hirsch Grove in Fort Dix, New Jersey, I was introduced to these machines. And if you remember, I want to say it was back in like 2009, 11, somewhere between there, that movie The Source Code came out. And in the movie Source Code, he was in something similar to one of these simulators. In fact, he was time traveling in such a machine. I remember being harnessed down and everything. It reminded me very much of like that movie. But continuing on. On the next street, you're going to have Humbert. Humbert means bright warrior. So you're going to continue to see those light warriors or those bright warriors continue to be a theme on the root of Jesse because that represents the angels. Light warriors, if you will, or bright warriors, Humbert. Continuing on to the next street, since this is representative of the root of Jesse, how can we point that out further beyond the names of Michael, Ann, Taft, and so on and so forth, or Old Foxhorn Road representing the 6666 or the six symbol Son of Man, okay? Continuing on, the next street will be behind Pinehurst or Humbert is Gene. Now we know that genes have everything to do with your genetics, right? So a gene is a unit of hereditary that is transferred from a parent to the offspring and is held to determine some characteristics of the offspring. That is your DNA or your RNA, if you will. So you have Gene right there. Now Gene cuts off of the street Russo. We know that Russo represents red or a red complexion, a ruddy complexion, right? It also represents Russia, which is interesting because in 2006-07 era when I was in Chicago at Fermi Laboratories, Russia was one of the main people that was setting up the camps there. I don't know if I spoke on that in one of my previous videos, but we know that Russia was in collusion or cohorts with the Americans as far as this defense program that has to do with time travel. Continuing on. So you have Gene right there representing your DNA or RNA cutting off from the street Russo, right? Continuing on. The next street is going to be Diaz, which means days, or a variation of the word Diego, which means the son of days, right? That has a lot to do with time and everything that is coming to the end of days, right? The son of days, right? So that represents the offspring or the root of Jesse in the sense that the tribe of Judah or the descendants of Christ would play a major part in the changing of times and the bringing about of these days. Continuing on. The next street, which is very unique and interesting because we're going to get down to the basics of the patriarchs of this root of Jesse, right? But the very next street is Pershing. Now, Pershing doesn't sound like a normal word that would have anything to do with the root of Jesse, just like some of these other streets like Savoy and so on and so forth. But If you actually look up this word, Pershing is a U.S. short-range missile ballistic missile that is capable of carrying a nuclear or conventional warhead. Now, when I talked about this story, I said something about a wall of fire and that the world was catastrophically destroyed. I said I didn't know whether that was nuclear or by some plasma or gamma ray or something from the solar system. But here in this root of Jesse, you do have a nuclear warhead Pershing, right? That has to be significant in the sense that this warhead plays a part. And one thing I do know now that I didn't know before is that nuclear energy or nuclear fission has a lot to do with time travel. Continuing on. So the next street you're going to have is another angel. Now you have Michael at the top, you have St. John in the middle, you have my name Taff under that, and then down here you have the angel Gabriel or Gabriel Street, right? So Gabriel is following this Pershing or this nuclear cataclysm, right? Gabriel means God is my strength, and he is one of the 5 hierarchy archangels. Now, we know that Gabriel was interpreting the dreams of Daniel in the book of Daniel. We know that the book of Daniel is related to the book of Revelations because it speaks of the wild beast that we talked about previously, right? We know that Gabriel was also the angel sent to destroy Babylon, right? So those correlations to predict dreams and outcomes of future events, and the fact that he's destroying Babylon, that speaks great numbers to the future occurrences and the occurrences that are taking place right now in America, which is modern day or mystery Babylon, if you will, right? Continuing on. So we got Gabriel right there, right? Off of Jean Street, right? He's taking care of the genes in the bloodline. The next street after Gabriel is going to be Mary, right? We know that Mary was also the name of the mother of Jesus Christ. And we know that Mary was also the name of Jesus' wife, Mary Magdalene. So right there, that would be the patriarch. And then you would have the continuation of the generations or the bloodlines through Mary Magdalene, right? Continuing on. The next street you're going to have is Genesee, which means beautiful valley. Now remember, anytime you see a beautiful valley or a beautiful meadow or a land of such a nature and it's represented in a way that is of a haven, then that represents the Garden of Eden yet again. Continuing on. The next street following after Genesee is the street Rizzo. Now, Rizzo means a person with curly hair. So right here on this stem or root of Jesse, we know that Adam or Adama in the Hebrew language means red, right? So we know that Adam was made from the dirt or the clay of the earth, right? Therefore, we know that Adam in some way must have had a red complexion or a ruddy color, right? And it's also displaying that he had woolly or curly hair, if you will. Rizzo is also number 44, Anthony Rizzo of the Chicago Cubs. And we know that Chicago plays a major part in the allegory or metaphor of modern Babylon. It's one of the major cities that represents Mystery Babylon, right? Now, continuing on. So Anthony means priceless one. Vincent means conquering. So you have a priceless one coming to conquer, right? All of these things are manifestations of the root of Jesse or the branch of Jesse, right? Because we are representative of the truth that is going to come out and is already being expressed and displayed throughout media today. We know that there are lost tribes of a certain nature or a certain theme in history that is starting to display more than just theories or more than just mythologies. These things are manifesting into the actualities of what they always were, but misunderstood in times past. Continuing on. So the next street we got Gabriel, we got a nuclear bomb Pershing, we got Rizzo, curly hair. We have the next street is Martha. Now we know that Martha was Mary Magdalene's sister, right? She was the one that was washing dishes and cleaning the house and complaining when Mary was sitting down with Jesus learning, right? So we know that Martha and Mary are sisters, right? Now Martha means mistress or the lady. Now we have to understand Martha is a mistress. And we have to understand that in the Bible it says that when the harlot, Mystery Babylon, when she is destroyed, when she is burned up, when she is desolate and laid waste, when she is put in a sick bed and her children with her because of her fornication with the world, right? When that happens, we got to understand that she would no longer be called mistress. She would no longer be called the lady, because she rose herself above the highest authority and said that she was the one and that there was no other besides her. So she denounced her husband, she denounced her children, she denounced her offspring and everything that she represented. And she got kind of arrogant in her ways. Continuing on, so you have Mary and Martha right there on the root of Jesse. It makes perfect sense. Continuing on. Now the next street after Martha, you will find the street Miami. Now Miami is kind of encircled around these street names, Gene and Russo, right? Now we remember the Super Bowl was in Miami in 2020, and we know that these Super Bowls represent rituals of a certain kind when it comes to these secret societies, or what people call the Illuminati. We know that the Super Bowl or NBA Finals or any major sporting event, opening, closing ceremonies like the Olympics, all of those are rituals of a certain kind. And you'll come to learn that later on as I do more videos. But Miami represents or means big water, right? And big water is a multitude of people, right? We know that the harlot who sat over many waters, right, and represented many nations, many tongues, and many languages, right? So we know that Mystery Babylon sat over big water. So that's why you're going to see that sign there. We also have Paul Street. We know that Paul wrote 12 books in the New Testament, so he wrote the majority of what is in the known New Testament of the Bible today. We also have Michael. We know Michael is the highest angel who cast out the dragon. And we also have Lucy Street. Lucy Street represents aka Lucifer. That's what they call her even in entertainment. Her name for short is Lucy. Then we also have Cross. If you look above and you actually look these streets up, at any given time, you'll see the word cross, because we know the cross represents Jesus' crucifixion. Now the last two streets sealing this deal up, the root of Jesse, you have the street Florence. Now Florence means to blossom or flourish, right? Now Florence was one of the last major hurricanes that struck the United States also, which reminded me of when Jesus Christ spoke about in Matthew chapter 24. We know that 24 represents Kobe Bryant. We know that 24 represents the 24 elders surrounding the throne of God. We know that 24 in the book of Isaiah chapter 24 also speaks of the coming apocalypse or revelation speaking, right? Now, when you continue on from there, we're going to pull all of this in. We have Florence, which means to flourish or to blossom, right? Because that's what the root of Jesse is going to do. That's what the branch is going to do. It's going to turn into that willow. It's going to become that flourishing willow tree that's set by the creek or by the banks that was spoke of in the prophecy of the great eagle in the book of Isaiah, or the book of Ezekiel, I mean. Now, the last street sewing that up is the street strong. We know that these genes of this root of Jesse must be strong in order to last into the end of days, to the becoming of the new kingdom. And that root of Jesse will be protected, guided. It would go through bondage. It would go through oppression. It would go through many things to be made whole and to be made ready for the coming kingdom, so that out of our unworthiness, we might be found worthy. This will tie up the root of Jesse. This is in New Haven, Connecticut, in East Rock. This is where the Skull and Bones began, and they are responsible for time travel and a lot of manifestations as far as funding and providing the necessary excuses, if you will, to have these black projects to do such a thing. Continuing on. So the one thing I ask myself is, out of this entire story, you will find Lawrence Taft surrounding these circumstances. You will find these circumstances pointing out to some vagueness of the story that I've been telling this entire time, or the story that I will continue to tell, and how things will unfold. And I hope that you guys can make it with me through the rest of this journey so that we can unfold this flower and see what everybody has to do with this entire story. Noticed since 2015, a lot of these names that are on these streets, if they are saints like Saint Anne, Saint John, Saint Mary, Saint Martha, I want you to remember the simple fact that they are named after hurricanes. And I think about in Matthew 24 when it says, you shall see the coming of the Lord in the glory of the clouds, right? With the power and the glory of the clouds. What are hurricanes? They often come from Africa when you actually think about it. So why does the west coast of Africa seem to keep on sending in these powerful storms with the names of the apostles or the saints?
Imagery is shocking from the air.
It's almost impossible to describe the destruction from Hurricane Michael here on Mexico Beach. There are some buildings still standing, others are completely destroyed.
And on the ground.
So we've now made it about 10 blocks.
Tonight across Texas and Louisiana, Hurricane Laura's message, loud.
The Category 4, that was reason enough to leave.
And clear.
If you're going to leave, now is the time to do it.
The storm swelling into a Category 4 monster. In its path, more than 500,000 people facing mandatory evacuations.
Also on Hurricane Maria, it is lashing the Caribbean islands right now. Category 5. That is the island of Guadalupe. Hit overnight. It hit hard. We'll have a lot more on that coming up.
And we know the hurricane already leaving disaster in its path, making landfall as a Category 5 storm in Dominica. The prime minister there rescued from the debris. He says so many homes around him have been destroyed, Michael.
Yes, they have, Robin, sadly enough. And take a look at Hurricane Maria from space. This video shows it approaching the island, and now it's heading toward Puerto Rico, where they're warning of catastrophic damage.
And of course, it is not the only storm right now. Also watching another Hurricane Jose. As it moves towards the northeast, there are watches and warnings from Virginia to Maine. Lots of concern about coastal flooding.
It's the eerie image exploding across social media. A satellite photo of Hurricane Matthew. It sure does look like a smirking skull, especially with that devilish red background. Florida meteorologist Matt Devitt of Wink TV in Fort Myers noticed the spooky likeness. The image is everywhere. Scary skull of Matthew. Skull image of Hurricane Matthew spooks the internet. Eerie face spotted on satellite image. So is it real or photoshopped?
It is 100% legit, authentic. I didn't change anything on it, didn't change the contrast, didn't change one single pixel. That is the way it actually appeared.
Weather Channel senior meteorologist Stu Ostro was the first to post the image to Twitter.
This is some really freaky, sinister looking face, which unfortunately is consistent with the hurricane being sinister because it's already been deadly and destructive.
Yeah, nothing may be as scary as Hurricane Matthew when it slams into the East Coast.
And will really impact the area this weekend. Look at that with the extended forecast coming up, but what will not impact this weekend, but we're still watching, Tropical Storm Florence. It is off the coast of Africa, moving west-northwest at 14
Rivers are
miles an
rising
hour.
today throughout North Carolina as all this rain from Florence rushes downstream. The death toll from this storm is now up to 31 across several states.
Overnight, tornado watches across Virginia after powerful twisters left debris over an 18-mile stretch from Richmond to Chesterfield. Down trees, flipped cars, shredded buildings.
It's picking stuff up.
One person died at this flooring business.
We have no words. They're our neighbors, and to have them lose somebody so close to them, it's just heartbreaking.
The tornadoes, remnants of Hurricane Florence, still packing a punch days after landfall.
It's just been crazy.
In North Carolina, rivers are rising after days of torrential rain. Huge swaths of the state are underwater, roads impassable, communities cut off.
Catastrophic flooding and tornadoes are still claiming lives and property.
This tour boat operator from Florida found a pregnant woman and her family desperately clinging to a tree.
Come to my boy!
After the raging floodwaters swept them away. The small town of Lumberton was ravaged by Hurricane Matthew 2 years ago. Now it's devastated again. We were there.
The Atlantic slave trade or transatlantic slave trade involved the transportation by slave traders of enslaved African people, mainly to the Americas. The slave trade regularly used the triangular trade route and its middle passage and existed from the 16th to the 19th centuries. The vast majority of those who were enslaved and transported in the transatlantic slave trade were people from Central and West Africa who had been sold by other West Africans to Western European slave traders who brought them to the Americas.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Now that I've shown you the streets surrounding Yale University, home of the Skull and Bones, and I've also showed you the route of Jesse and the names of the streets surrounding Rousseau and Old Fox Road. Now, the last street at the end of those roads, tying those roads all together, is the street Florence. Now, how does that pertain to the route of Jesse? I'd like you to watch this short clip in Florence, Italy, because Florence, Italy is deeply embedded in Renaissance artwork and also it is very specific to artwork done by some of the greatest artists of their time period, like Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. These are renowned names in the art world still even today, long after their deaths, which are biblically embedded in their paintings, in their sculptures. So take a look at this clip so we can see the route of Jesse as we enter into Florence, Italy. We're going to visit the Museum of Uffizi.
After the fall of ancient Rome, Europe wallowed in centuries of relative darkness. There was little learning, commerce, or travel. Then, in about 1400, here in Florence, there was a Renaissance. This exciting rebirth of the cultures of ancient Greece and Rome swept from here all across Europe. In architecture, the Renaissance brought a return to the balanced domes, columns, and arches of the ancient world. In painting, it revived realism and emotion. Artists rediscovered the wonder of nature and the human body. Portraying beautiful people in harmonious surroundings, they expressed the optimism and confidence of this new age.
The Birth of Venus is one of Botticelli's greatest creations. It represents a universal ideal of feminine beauty and has been reproduced countless times throughout the world. Botticelli chose a linen canvas backing for this painting, a bit unusual for the time, which made his colors softer, creating the chromatic delicacy that makes it unique in the world. Contrary to its name, the birth of Venus is not represented in the picture, but instead her arrival on the island of Cyprus.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris.
Hey, and I'm Saul.
And today we'll be looking at two sculptures by really Renaissance rock stars, Donatello and Michelangelo.
Now, the piece of art that we're looking at here is Donatello's Bronze David. This was sculpted in 1430. Now, this is a very interesting piece of art because it was the first bronze sculpture since the classic times, as well as the first freestanding nude male sculpture. Now, Donatello was one of the founding fathers of art, and upcoming, he was very odd, very weird, and pretty strange. He would smash his work when he didn't like it, and people kind of saw him as an odd fellow. However, the Medici family stood up for him, and they were considered outsiders themselves. We can see that Donatello put a lot of movement and motion into the sculpture. As we can see, the left wrist and arm of David is resting on his left hip, which kind of flings out his elbow, and then we can see his left knee is slightly bent over Goliath's head, and his right leg is stiff. And as we look at the sculpture David and look at his face, he's a lot younger and very youthful. And look at Goliath's head. It just looks so real. The facial expressions that are portrayed here, as well as the beard and the lines and the curvature down there as well. It's really realistic. And also, if we look at the sword, you can see that there's actually notches on the sharp side of the sword, which kind of shows that this sword has been through battle. It shows Donatello's very detailed perspective to his artwork. Now, this sculpture resides in the National Museum in Florence, where it is frequently visited by people all over the world.
Now here you have the sculpture of David by Michelangelo. While Michelangelo is most often known for painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he thought of himself more of a sculptor than a painter. He thought it gave him the almost divine ability to create something out of a solid block of stone. In fact, the giant piece of marble that this was carved from was nicknamed the Giant. And David in this figure himself is 14 feet 3 inches tall, and with the pedestal below it, he is 26 feet up in the air, which is an absolutely imposing, majestic figure. This sculpture really exudes power and fearlessness and determination, which represented the Florentines' view of themselves.
Welcome to the Accessible Art History YouTube channel. Today we are going to compare two works of art depicting the same subject. Both Michelangelo and Bernini created sculptures of the biblical figure David during their careers. This video will discuss both their similarities and their differences. Before we delve into the art, it is important to understand the story of David. He was born to a large family, the youngest of 8 sons. His family were shepherds. When David was a teenager, the prophet Samuel anointed him as the next king of Israel. He was introduced to the current king Saul and became his personal musician. At this time, Israel was at war with the Philistines. Their champion was a giant named Goliath. He challenged the Israelites by stating he would fight their champion in single combat. None of the Israelites volunteered, too scared of Goliath's size. But David offered himself up, wanting to spare his people from a lengthy and bloody battle. On the outside, it looked as if it would be an easy victory for Goliath, but David had his tenacity and his faith. He took a rock and loaded it into his slingshot. Winding up, David aimed at Goliath's head. The shot was true, and David slayed the giant. This biblical story of the underdog winning the day for his people has been one of the most popular in the history of art. Next, we are going to look at two of the most famous examples. Michelangelo's David is a quintessential work of Renaissance sculpture. Created between 1501 and 1504, he carved a statue from a piece of discarded marble. It was originally meant to be a part of a series featuring Old Testament figures, but it was so impressive that it became a featured solo piece, as if he is sizing up his opponent. The muscles in his neck and shoulders are tensed up. It could be conveying nerves, but it could also be David's adrenaline preparing him for the fight ahead. About 120 years after Michelangelo's work, Bernini sculpted his own David. It was commissioned by Cardinal Scipione Borghese and worked on between 1623 and 24. The cardinal was one of Bernini's first patrons, which is why many of his works are still in the Borghese Gallery today. What makes this work so remarkable is that David isn't contained within the allotted space. He is dynamic and moves outside of his sphere. This was a novelty in Baroque art. It was a style of sculpture not seen since Hellenistic Greece. Bernini likely got his inspiration from the Borghese Gladiator, a 2nd century BCE sculpture discovered in Rome around 1600. In this work, we see David wearing his shepherd's attire. He is in the middle of winding up his swing, preparing to send the death blow to Goliath. David's face is contorted with emotion. We see anger, determination, fear, and bravery etched in his muscles. The viewer can feel these things along with David, causing us to cheer him on.
And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside, and on the back sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice,
"Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?"
And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one of the elders said to me,
"Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals."
And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth.
You're going to find Mary there. You're going to find Gene, Gene, like your genes of DNA. All those streets is going to be out there because the Masons, whoever you want to call them, the secrecies of the world, the Boulets and the Huays and the Huyas, I don't really even want to put a title or a name to anything because I know everybody has to do whatever they doing. The world is a stage and everybody got to play their part. If you on one side of things, it's your prerogative. If you're on another side of things, it's your prerogative. But there are people that are spending real money and real time and have been investing for hundreds and thousands of years for something, whether you believe it's real or not. And whether you understand it or not, you got to ask yourself, why do they have power in this world at all? And you don't. They know you better than you know yourself. They know your history better than you know it. And then they make you not like your history. They make it not hip, not cool. They make it not nothing to know. That way you ain't even interested in it. They throw a book in your face, you'll throw it back in their face. And you'll never get no understanding of self. Right? When self leads you exactly to what you're trying to think you believe in already. Right? Everybody on this spiritual awakening shit, right? Everybody's spiritually awoken. Because the information there, you think you can go learn something. Man, I know something. I don't need to. I can go learn it because I need to divulge it to you, but I don't need to learn it for myself. It's things that's already in me, okay? But continuing on. So the next night I'm going to Sprouts, right? Sprouts in the Bible. And as a matter of fact, I'll throw some verses in here as I clip this video together. But I'm on my way to work. Boom. I go through the back street, Sequoia, representing the tallest trees in America, right? Which is a representation of the tree of life. We have Holly, like Hollywood, right? Representing the goddess or the Babylonian whore or so on and so forth, right? Because the Queen of Heaven is represented by a pillar or a tree. That pillar represents the tree, if it's not a tree or a grove itself of trees, right? They use poles or these pillars. Why do you think strippers dance on poles? They are harlots, right? They represent the divine feminine harlotry, right? Because she is pure, she is wholly pure, but she is wholly everything else too. And the Bible shows you those correlations over and over. They liken them in dimensions though, because they're talking about a group of people, they're talking about a land of sorts, they're talking about a church of sorts, and they're talking about a deity also. So when you put those metaphors together, those are the dimensions of what the harlot represents. The whore of Babylon, if you will, mystery Babylon, if you will. Mystery Babylon the Great, the book of Revelations calls it. And not only that, you got to think, well, Trump be saying, make America great. Babylon the Great is where we at. That's why he say make America great again, because he know he's actually really saying. The limousine for the president is called the Beast, man. You got to think the Beast is here, people. The Beast system is ready. The Beast, everything is ready to go off the assembly line and put it right there to your face with no case, no trace. You heard me? And that's what they about to get on. So anyway, I see Sequoia, I see Holly, and as I'm going down Holly, these back streets, I see a school called Shedak or something like that. Or it's called Bovine Elementary School, one of the two. But it's a red bull with long horns sitting out in front of the school. That's very specific to sacrificial or mythological stories like the Apis bull or different things like that, or Hathor, the mother goddess of the bull, right? You got to understand these bulls represent a particular god, Baal, Baal, Moloch, and so on and so forth. These different manifestations of the lower angels, if you will, and or the lower gods, if you will, the little g's, if you will. And going on from there, I see the Red Bull. I know we finna get on something. Where the goddess at? The very next street I see is Victoria. Now, Victoria is the Olympic goddess, right? Victoria carries the torch. She carries the flame. And then you also have the street Olympic out there. Olympic representing the Olympians, right? But they started the Olympics after the god Apollo. So Apollo is very key to this. I don't want to talk about everything yet, but you know, if I am a time traveler, I was certain people in the past. And that's one thing I do understand, that some of these characters that you probably see written on walls, I am some of those people. And I'm not trying to say that in a boastful way, man. I was scared learning some of that information at first. Cause man, y'all, man in black me type shit. And y'all didn't have to lose no hyper light, but I could imagine that probably works when you're using every other hypnosis effects. Bright lights and it probably do work. But continuing on, any way, shape, form, or fashion. So we have Victoria. Victoria is also Nike, the goddess Nike. That's the same Nike that you see as the tennis shoes, right? The check sign. LeBron James, them, all them wear the Nike brand. That's because Nike represents Victoria. Victoria represents Columbia. Columbia represents America. America represents Lucifer. Lucifer is the light bearer. The light bearer means she bears the light. To bear something means is to be with child, right? And we're going to talk about all that later because a lot of people have been misconstrued and confused because everything ain't been put on the table yet, right? But once everything is put on the table, the understanding going to come with that. The food you need to be eating gonna come with that. And we're gonna serve you up something good. You know what I'm talking about? We ain't just gonna give you no breast milk. And if we do, nigga, we gonna put that shit in some macaroni and cheese or something. Put that in some seasoning or something. Whip that up and make it do what it do. You know what I'm talking about? But continuing on, so I see Victoria or Nike or Lucifer, right? That's the first street. I see the Red Bull. Now, if you didn't think that was biblically pertaining to anything, the next street also was St. James, specifically St. James Place, right? And St. James is very key because Jesus Christ took 3 people with him on a mountain one day that was talking about time travel. And that was the first book and verse I opened up the book to out of those days that I didn't get no nights and sleep. But out of those first 5 days, when I finally got that Bible, because I told y'all I had told my girl to bring me a Bible back when she was about to leave or whatever like that. But the very first page, I did not do nothing but open the book up. And the very first page I went to, I want to say it was Mark chapter 9. And it was talking about how after Jesus was getting ready to get crucified, it was after 6 days after Passover or something like that, or some days after Passover. And he took him on the mountain. And he was transfigured before them, shining in all white. I already knew what that meant ASAP because I was telling people when I first got here on February 1st, mama, auntie, cousins, whoever the hell I was talking to, I kept talking about these suits and how they was white. I ain't gonna go into too much of what else I said they did, but I guarantee you this, they've been showing you exactly what I've been talking about before the movies even came out. My goodness, man, I'm wondering if they've been stealing my shit, but you know, I don't know if they helping me or mocking me sometimes, and that's just being 100 with you. I don't know if they mocking me or trying to help me because I don't see nobody seeing enough. I don't see nobody seeing enough, waking up enough, but you know, I'm gonna pray for that. So I see Victoria, St. James. He took Jesus Christ took St. James, St. John, and Peter. James, John, and Peter went on the mountain with Jesus. And then when he was transfigured, Elijah and Moses showed up on the mountain because they were carrying that power that I'm talking about that can only be possessed in the Christ. And that reason I said they become the power of the vessel of the temple, like the Ark of the Covenant themselves. Because when you fully become who you're supposed to be, when you put on those white garments or this white suit that I'm talking about, you're going to be fully manifested in who you need to be. You're going to fully become that temple, that vessel. You're going to be fully who you once were once again. And that's when all the bull in life going on is going to cease and desist, when those people become fully manifested into who they already are, right? We almost here, y'all. We almost ready to do this thing. There ain't nothing wrong with that. And the 144,000, all of those things come into play with those garments, okay? All those garments come into play. And I have the schematics for those garments, just in case anybody want to support that. I have the schematics for that. If you want to go ahead and help us go ahead and get this thing on the road, because I'm ready to go too. But anyway and anyhow, continuing on. So after St. James, I can continue to see other streets. Andrew is associated with the Jamaican flag. That's why when you see that X on the Jamaican flag, that is associated with St. Andrew because he was hung on an X. You do get 210 out of that in the Bible. So if y'all wanted to read the book on the 5,000 people that got fed with the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread with Andrew in the story, you're going to see 210 in that story if you want to have some sense.
His disciples came and told him, "You must send the people away to find a place to stay and find something to eat." Jesus looked at the thousands of people. It was a huge crowd. There were 5,000 men, plus women and children. Then Jesus gave a strange order to his disciples. "You give them something to eat," he commanded them. The disciples were confused. "We don't have any food. And even if we spent all the money we had on food, there still would not be enough." Then Jesus asked them, "What food do you have?" One of his disciples, Andrew, came up to Jesus with a young boy. "This boy has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But that is not enough for all these people. Have the people sit down." Jesus instructed. The disciples went to work arranging the people into an orderly seating pattern. The young boy watched as Jesus held up his food and thanked God for it. Suddenly, a miraculous sign occurred. After giving thanks, Jesus started handing out the food.
Continuing on, though, we're going to make this do what it does. It's your boy LT Dunn. I'm glad y'all rolling with me. We almost wrapping it up, but I want to show y'all how I found this video with Barack on February 10, 2011, because that's how I started understanding I'm a time traveler. That's why Jupiter ascending and all these things was happening after 2,000 years when Jesus Christ was born, all the way up to the day I showed up here. I'm not Christ at all, people. I want to tell y'all that first and foremost. If I ain't said it before, I'm going to say it once again, just in case you ain't watched some of these videos and make it long enough to hear me say that. But I am very closely related to Jesus Christ, or the Anointed One, or the Anointed Spirit of the universe, whatever you want to call it, man. People going to have every other thing they want to associate what Christ means to them, and that's fine. But whatever you think that is going to be eventually manifested into what you're going to know as the truth. Whether you understood the whole truth, some of the truth, or not, the whole truth will be divulged to everybody eventually, okay? So anyway, I'm very related to that source, genetically and spiritually. And we're going to continue on from that. So I saw Kingston was the name of a street, right? Now I told you I came out of a particle accelerator, right? A particle accelerator has a lot to do with things to be able to get the type of energy that comes from the universe that you need to open up these things here on Earth. Okay, they used to do that with the old grid, with the pyramids and the obelisk and things like that. But that's another story too, right? That's what Lucifer has everything to do with. Any grid that's ever been established, even this grid right here. This thing right here was put up a long time ago too for a reason, right? And that was back in probably the earliest 19th century. when that was going on. But anyway, continuing on. We're going to talk about the world fairs too, because the world fairs, somewhere down the road, is going to have a lot to do with time travel. And you're going to see it, maybe, hopefully, the way I see it. Eventually, the Olympics will tie into time travel also, and I will show you those things, because those are the things that God was showing me, that Father was showing me when I first got here. He was telling me, watch this, watch that. One of the first things I did watch was the Olympics, though. I watched the Olympics from all the way from 2000 or 99, 99, 2000, I don't know which one it was, but all the way up to the most recent one. Now, if you want to realize that, Kobe Bryant retired from the NBA in 2016, which was the Olympic year, and the Olympics was in Rio de Janeiro that year, and Rio de Janeiro is where the Christ statue Redeemer is at. Remember the one that was struck by lightning on my birthday, exactly a year after the president announced his run for presidency on my birthday, February 10th, right? Andrew, and the 5,000 fed with the 2 fish and the 5 loaves, right? 210. That's gonna pop up a lot, and that's the way I was gonna come to understand. You're gonna see how coincidental 210 is. Watch. If you don't know, you're gonna know one day. But continuing on. So the last street as I'm coming out this neighborhood, since I understood that it was telling the story, the second witness came that was transfigured before Jesus, which is James. I stay off of St. John. I work behind St. James. And then even Andrew popped up, but Andrew was not at the transfiguration of Jesus Christ, so he doesn't necessarily count, but he does represent the 210. Because even Garth Brooks' birthday is like on February 7th. And Bob Marley's birthday is like on February 6th or 7th or something like that too. So they in the field of the same understanding also. You got to remember, February means purified, because the purification is coming. The rising of the phoenix is coming. I've already been through the understanding of what the rebirth means, because when I went through that portal, I became what the exact representation of that phoenix represents. When I went through that portal, that was a true baptism. That was what being baptized really represents. Because when you go through that transformation, you go through that portal like that, your life is going to be different. You're going to understand people a lot different. You're going to have different energies and things you're going to have to learn to control and understand what's what and decipher different things, because a lot of things is going to be drawn to you because that energy on you. And you're going to have to learn how to, it's a big responsibility to be able to have that kind of energy. Now, continuing on. So the last street, remember I told y'all 7-Eleven is very strategic, right? So at the end of the street, we got Queensboro. We got beam, right? The word B-E-A-M, like a light beam, right? So the fact that the particle accelerator does create a light beam, even the word beam on the street was right there after all Victoria, St. James, the Red Bull, Sequoia, Holly. Representing all these different things, right? Now the last street, right there where 7-Eleven coming out for Holly is Dandiment, right? And I'm like, okay, I understood what every other street mean. You had Daniel Street over there. I understood what Daniel mean, because the book of Daniel in the Bible is tied to the book of Revelations, because it also talks about that wild beast, and also in the book of Daniel. Now, one thing I want y'all to notice about these street names, Queensboro, Kingston, Andrew, those are related to Jamaica. Now, one thing I want you to think about is Donald Trump was born in Jamaica, Queens. He was born at Kingston Hospital, or Jamaica Hospital. I think it was Kingston Hospital. Now, you got to think, Vanderman Arena, Barack Obama, February 10th, 2010. Why all these things are lining in this manner? Donald Trump was born at Jamaica Hospital in the borough of Queens, New York on June. But we'll talk about all of those things over time, guys. I gotta give you exactly how I got here, came to this understanding, and I will start using scripture eventually to show you what is what and what it means. Because we gotta go through all that stuff so we can start actually traveling and doing things beyond space and time. If you don't understand how we able to do that, then God not gonna let you just be able to do that just because you want to or something like that. It don't necessarily work like that. Even though I was a part of the program, I don't think I ever asked to be a part of. But hey, continuing on, right? So, Bandiment was right there off Holly and 7-Eleven. And Bandiment was the street I go down to get to my job, so I pull up in the parking lot off of Bandiment. So I understood what Victoria, Nike, Daniel, I understood St. James, I understood Jamaica, Andrew, I understood all those street names, but I was like, what the hell do Bandiment mean? Right? I didn't look it up while I was at work. I went to work, got to doing my job, and I waited till I got home. And then when I got home, early in the morning, I get on YouTube or Google and whatever like that, and I'm looking like, what is Bandiment? I'm like, Bandiment, meaning, what is Bandiment, And I got on YouTube and typed in Bandiment, and the next thing you know, the street that I worked off of, because I'm already knowing I'm a time traveler for about 5-6 days at this time, right? But I'm knowing how to figure out the information that I am to concur with what I'm feeling, what I'm knowing, right? So I looked up Bandiment on YouTube, and the next thing you know, who pops up? Barry Soetoro, right? Barack Barry Hussein Obama, right? Pops up at Bandiment Arena at Northern Michigan University, home of the Wildcats, right? On February 10th, my birthday, 2011. Announced run for presidency when? To February 10th, 2000 what? Okay, you can look that up. These are facts. Truth. No, the only thing you're gonna be able to question is did he really do those things? That's all. Man, I'm gonna bring so much shit. It's gonna start fucking your head up after a while, man. The stuff, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna be like, man, wow, that's kind of wild. you know. It's not that I'm trying to brag about that, man. I had to figure this out. I needed answers. You know what I'm saying? When you go through something like that, you're gonna need answers, and guess who was able to give them to me? Not nobody. It's whatever I thought I was listening to, what I knew I was listening to. That's why I know what I know now. I know. It ain't no I believe. Then you gotta have faith, and faith requires you to believe something. I believe there's things. I believe things are gonna work out the way they're supposed to. That's what I do have faith in. But what I do know is things that I do know now. That's different. Knowing the universe, knowing God, knowing Father, knowing those things, knowing where you came from before you even had a physical vessel, knowing those type of things really have value and weight, because that is the weight and the value of density that you should have been trying to get into, right? But we'll get there eventually, people. No stress. So Barack was what represented Bandiment, right? He represented Bandiment. So we going to work. I realized when I walked through the door that night that it was 1100 Sprouts. That was the address, 1100. So you had 11 and 00. I'm like, wow, what a coinkydink is that? You can make that 2 10s if you want to, but 11 represents the apocalypse, the revelation, right? So I'm going in there. I'm working that night, and for some reason, because I recognized the street names was biblical and that it had something to do with the story. One of the streets you see Ottawa, you see Montreal, and Queensboro. Ottawa, the flag, you see the 666 emblem within the Ottawa flag. The other streets you see Montreal. If you look at the coat of arms of Montreal, you will see Mary's thistle. You will see a 3-leaf clover. You will see a fleur-de-lis or a saint symbol, and you will see the Lancaster rose. All of those signs or symbols are representative of the offspring and the descendants of Jesus Christ, or the root of Jesse, or the branch or sprout, if you will. Also notice the Templar cross within the middle of the coat of arms. At the top you will see the branch, and you will see the beaver atop the branch. Now if we realize in the Bible, one of the trees were torn down by God's command. Find that story in the book of Daniel. The clover represents the Trinity. The Mary's thistles represents Mary Magdalene, Jesus' wife. The saint symbol represents the sainthood of those who will be martyred before the coming of Jesus Christ. And the Lancaster rose will represents the royalty and the direct descendant who will be the bloodline to carry on the tradition or bring about the return of Christ in the tribe of Judah as those who would rule and the scepter would never leave. And because St. James was back there, one of the three, disciples that helped Jesus Christ see his transfigured self, his true form, I knew that he was the second signal to let me know this is what it is. Okay? And I'm cleaning up, and I guarantee you, every product I saw that day in the store at Sprouts, right? The Root of Jesse store, so to speak. All the products in the store were biblical products. All the labels, Napoleon had some products in there. I stayed off Bonaparte. He found the Rosetta Stone so we could speak the universal coded languages of all the known rulers of the world and their kingdoms of their time. Greek, Egyptian, and so on and so forth, Rome, and so on and so forth. He's a staple into us being able to go to where we finna go. I told y'all he slept in a pyramid one night, right? And that he encountered Moses in the pyramids of Giza that night. And Moses convinced him to sell the Louisiana Purchase. I ain't gonna tell you why yet, because that's another story too, right? And we're gonna just continue on, man, because this is that deep. So I knew that abandonment was tied to Barry Barack, right? So I'm noticing that all the products, I'm sweeping, I'm mopping, and I'm noticing all the products is biblical names. Gonna show y'all some pictures here in a second, but they was all biblical names. And I'm like, okay, because Father show you stuff in threes, right? The street names was already on text. Barack being abandonment, I'm like, wow, that could be a coincidence on my birthday and all that. And then he talking about the 1800s and the internet and winning the future. That sound like a time travel slogan to me, right? And then the next thing you know, all the products in the store named after some Bible shit. Watch, I'm gonna show y'all the pictures. And even more so than that, I told y'all that he quoted a movie on February 10, 2011 while he was giving that speech about winning the future, and that he talked about the movie Field of Dreams, right?
This is a new century. And we can't expect tomorrow's economy to take root using yesterday's infrastructure. We got to think about what's the next thing, what's the next big thing, and make sure that we're at the forefront, just like we were in the last century. Today, news companies are going to seek out the fastest, most reliable ways to move people, goods, and information, whether they are in Shanghai or in Chicago. So if we want new jobs and businesses here in America, we've got to have the best transportation system and the best communication network in the world. It's like that movie, Field of Dreams. If we build it, they will come. But we've got to build it.
But if you know, when I went to work that night, the dudes on the that worked in the store, I just worked for Imperial cleaning the store. I didn't work for Sprouts. But the people that did work for Sprouts, on the back of their shirts, had a dream of fields. On the back of their shirts. This 2015. That was 2011. Do y'all see how crazy that is? How that all ties in together, and how would I even find that? That's because I was listening. And I was looking and I was seeing and I understood that boom, it's definitely there. Something there. It's always gonna be there. It's gonna be there every time. Because it was meant to be there. Okay? There are some quantum things. This the quantum most entanglement I've ever seen. This is a quantum entanglement. Because if you look at this matrix the way it is, and I'm gonna be able to find the things I find the way they are, and all these miraculous things is happening, and I'm not understanding why yet, but I figure those things are tied into because of the timing. Right? It was all timing. So I'm noticing all those things. The names of the products, Bible this, Bible that, Bible that. Now the thing that hit me in the head is that I got up to the cash registers, right? I done mopped all the aisles up to this point. Now I get up there to these cash registers and I'm mopping close to the cash registers and the magazines is right here. And the magazines that's on every aisle is these National Geographic magazines. But guess what was on the National Geographic magazines, people? Right? Remember I told y'all Skull and Bones, Boule, and all these people responsible for time travel? Right? The magazine was a National Geographic magazine talking about secret societies, people. I took pictures that night, yeah. So I'm going to show y'all. This is from 2015. Thank God I was taking pictures sometime. I wasn't as savvy as I should have been on my point, but I would get better with time. So continuing on from there, the magazine said secret societies. Bandham and Arena, February 10th, right? All these things coming together. It was blowing my top off, but it was making me stick to the script of believing that I must have cracked. I done cracked into some shit that I never knew I was part of, right? You done dug into some shit that you probably not supposed to remember. I don't know if I was supposed to remember this shit or not. But y'all had the quantum communication. Y'all had the telepathic viewing so that y'all could reactivate whoever it was when they showed up. Y'all must have knew that the astral planes were going to be having something to do with this being able to happen. But anyway, continuing on. So I'm tripping now. But that's how I figured out that Barack was at Bandham Arena on my birthday, February 10, 2011. And he would continue to do other things on my birthday too that will break down into a metaphor of understanding of what's coming and what has already been and what's happening. You see what I'm saying? It's just going to continue to happen like that, people. But I just wanted to let y'all know that this is going to become to manifest more and more and more. And I'm have more and more stories up leading up to what happened so I can understand this. Just like if you go to Midwest City off of 10th Street and you go into all the neighborhoods that I lived on, you got the sun, moon, the stars, and Mars Boulevard, because all of those street names are pertaining to how things go, biblically speaking, how things go universally speaking. And how things will manifest into the physical and the metaphysical realms and the spiritual realms because of how everything has been orchestrated and organized and set up. Right? You will see the stories right there themselves. You will see the names there for themselves. And everything will point itself out to you. Just like that day when I left from talking to that old man and that little boy. When they left my house that day with the Air Force jackets on and they was talking about February 11th, they was prophesying outside of Tinker, I walked to the end of my driveway and I grabbed a magazine article. And in a newspaper article, and in the newspaper, it was talking about in April of 2018 that they were going to be unveiling this new airplane off Tinker Air Force plane. Off of Tinker Air Force Base, but the new airplane was called the Pegasus, right?
This is an Air Force Tech Report. I'm Tech Sergeant Nicholas Kurtz. The KC-135 Stratotanker has been the primary in-flight refueling aircraft for over 50 years, but soon it will be replaced with the more efficient KC-46A Pegasus, developed and manufactured by Boeing. The KC-46A will be able to refuel any fixed-wing receiver-capable aircraft on any mission. The KC-46A has more refueling capacity and improved efficiency, which is predicted to save the Air Force hundreds of millions of dollars through lower maintenance and repair costs. The Pegasus will provide aerial refueling support for the Air Force, Navy.
The KC-46 Pegasus is the Air Force's new refueler. One of the key team members on a refueler is the boom operator, and the boom delivers fuel to other aircraft while in flight. In the past, boom operators had to lay down in the back of the aircraft, and the job could be a literal pain in the neck. Thanks to a reconfigured workstation, life is about to get a lot better for boom operators on the new KC-46 Pegasus.
A Pegasus is a white flying horse of Greek mythology, right? And Greek mythology and this white horse got a lot to do with the Bible. Because if you read the book of Revelations, when Christ comes back and all the angels return, and when they come in power and glory, when they fully manifest themselves because they know, then you're going to see them on metaphorical, what you call white horses. White horses that fly, come riding in the clouds on, is a Pegasus, okay? Horse with wings. Specifically a white horse in the Bible. Alright, they didn't really sugarcoat what color the horse was. Okay? So I picked up that article, seeing that the day I seen the angel, the day I talked to these people, and they tell me they about to be doing this event outside of Tinker Air Force Base, and now y'all making this big jumbo plane called the Pegasus, right? Biggest plane ever made, I believe, by measurements. But you know, a lot of those measurements come out the Bible. You know, Noah's Ark, so to speak. But we ain't gonna talk about none of that. That's a whole nother story. But I just want to show y'all people that things are unfolding. Things are manifesting. Things are happening as they are. Just like, you know, when I was living in Meadow Park around the same time, I had met a group of people. I was trying to go over to these apartments right outside the apartments. It's called Orchard Springs. Orchard Springs will represent an orchard, an apple, right? An apple represents the tree of life, metaphorically speaking, because that's what they use nowadays as a representation of the tree of life. But Orchard Springs will be a metaphor for that, since I was in Meadow Park and I said that Meadow Park represents the Garden of Eden for several different reasons, right? Now, when I went over to those apartments, I'm going to be honest, I was looking for some weed. So I went to talk to one of my partners, but he wasn't there. Now, I ended up walking through the apartments and I seen some light-skinned, tall dude, a little bit taller than me, you know, curly hair. Now, I talked about mulatto black people in Louisiana a lot because Louisiana is the root. Remember, I talked about the woman serpent seed and how the woman seed will be at the foot and that the serpent seed will be at the head. Okay, I told y'all how that plays out in the geography of the United States. So Louisiana represents that foot. Now, I talked about a lot of those things tying in together because all of those things are going to represent biblical manifestations of what is partaking in the spiritual realm and the physical realm. Now, when I was in Orchard Springs, this light-skinned dude was from Louisiana. Louisiana's going to play a key story into one of these days when I tell that part of the story. But I was talking about blacks and mulatto people and things like that. And, you know, because a lot of them were down there in Louisiana back at that time. Or Creole people, whatever name you want to put to it. But nonetheless, I asked him if he knew where anybody, you know, where some smoke was. I ended up going to his house with him. He had some friends over there and some nephews or something like that. Little teenagers, you know what I'm saying? And I ended up talking to them because I was just so in the spirit at this time. I'm telling you, the first 40 days, people, I told you I didn't eat or sleep for 40 days or 40 nights because I took that wine and lotus flower seeds. And that wine and lotus flower seeds helped me stay not hungry and up, I guess. Just fully exuberating. Like that energy was just boom, boom. That's how it felt. Like I could just really feel myself. And I was telling them my story though. They look too young for me to really be telling them my story like that. But you know, I had this knowingness to just talk to whoever I talked to about it at the time. And it would be people that wasn't my family because my family wasn't understanding at the time. And I was asking Father, I'm like, Father, you know, I don't know if I want to do this because look at what's going on. I ain't gonna get no help. And I don't know what's gonna come of that. But anyway, I said, show me people that understand. So he did start showing me different people of all cultures and different backgrounds to show me that, hey, something going on here, whether you fully understand yet or not. So anyway, this is one of the first people I ran into, a younger group of people, you know, some teenagers, early 20s. And I'm telling them my story, you know, I'm telling them about the February 10th thing, and that's Christ's birthday, this, and that. And I was just going through scriptures at the time, and I'm telling you, I was able to tell this whole story in like 5 minutes. And at the end of that story, everybody was cool with it. They understood what I was saying, and he wanted to say something after that. And he was like, man, you know, I didn't know if I was going to tell you at first, but, you know, because I didn't know if you were serious or whatever like that. But then he was like, after the more and more you got to talking, he said, I started understanding and I started believing. And he was like, me and my sister were separated for 12 years. And he said, we just met back up and just got back together. And he's like, to commemorate us reuniting, we got the date of our reunited and on our tattoo. And I'm telling you, my birthday gonna pop up in a lot of random people's life when I go keep telling this story in the future. When I get to that part of the story, my birthday gonna keep popping up in random people's life too. But he said we got a tattoo to commemorate our reunited, and then the birthday on there was February 10th. Tattooed on both their arms. Now, how random is that? They stayed in G316, matter of fact. So you know John 3:16 represents G316 because I stayed off of St. John, and since that was a disciple that was anywhere near my house, I used him as 3:16 to go read. And John 3:16 is the key to all of these things. It's not y'all looking at Savior in a religious way when y'all need to start looking at Savior in a way that you understand what the heck safe means. When you understand what saved means. Quit being so religious, man, because the religion that you're believing and a part of right now is not going to be a religion no more once the truth becomes known. Once the truth becomes known, the word faith and belief and things like that will no longer exist. Therefore, religion will no longer exist because you will become what religion always was trying to teach you to become in the first place. We're in the 21st century. Those things are possible and they are going to manifest. Now, the manifestation of it will determine the evil or the quality of good in it because they either manifestation of these blessings can be used for good or evil. That's just going to be the facts and the truth of it. But you got to understand how to create that own for yourself and not the one that they trying to give to you. We're supposed to be the innovators. We're supposed to be the creators of this 21st century new things, right? But anyway, continuing on. So I just wanted to show y'all that because things will keep showing up like that throughout this story, guys. If you notice in this article, the tanker Pegasus was practically purchased on my birthday, February 10th, 2011, was revised for the purchase of the tanker Pegasus. Now, it goes on to say the U.S. Air Force Base began the first few steps of the new rounds of bids with a clear criteria, including reducing the number of requirements from 800 to 373 attempt to simplify the process and allow more objective decisions to be made. On March 4, 2010, beginning announced it would bid for the KC-767. It's a tanker. Now, if you go down, it says the KCX round EADS announced in April 2010 it would submit a tanker without Northrop Grumman as a U.S. partner. Boeing submitted a KC-767 new generation tanker bid on July 9, 2010. Now, the company submitted a revised bid on February 10th, 2011. Remember, February 10th, 2011, guys, is the same time Barack Obama was at Vanderbilt Arena talking about winning the future. Think about that, because that's deep.
So I felt like the guy in Star Trek. I was being beamed around.
I want y'all to remember to stay on y'all's point, stay on y'all's toes. You know, take care of yourself, take care of your mind, body, and soul. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you keep good people around you. Keep people with your best interest in mind. And you know what? I always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. You know what I'm saying? Because we will have to walk through fire to get to that light. We will have to go through the things that are necessary to fully prepare you for who you already are. You know, pressure only makes diamonds. You know what I'm saying? Pressure only makes diamonds. When we understand that, then we're going to understand life. Hey, it's your boy LT the Don. We'll be back at it sooner than later. Hold it down, you heard me? The bell is getting lifted. Oh yeah, that was the name of one of the streets out there in Yukon also, was Bell. B-A-I-L, because the bell gonna get lifted. That's another bell, but you know what it is. Holla at your boy. Now, last clip I want to show y'all is at the inauguration of Joe Biden. Now, you're gonna see this young lady named Amanda Gorman do this interesting speech. And one take in the background, you're gonna see these black ladies wearing the mask with the Jamaican flag and the American flag on it also. Now that's very unique because you're gonna also see Garth Brooks pop up at the inauguration. And remember, all of these people or these symbols or flags were present near abandonment in Yukon, Oklahoma. It's just an interesting thought that this many years later you would see these people popping up in this esoteric seemingly manner.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just is isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
If I can ask you to sing this last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work, as one, united. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Clementa Picnic found that grace.
Walk off.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Whoa. All met. All met.
One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters. With her, the kings of earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries." Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with the abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of earth. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. In Revelation 17, we see the leopard-like beast from Revelation 13 again, whereas chapter 17 deals with the establishment of a theocratic governing system. Those who take part willfully exchange their moral integrity and worth for the necessities of life and such by receiving the mark of the beast, which is why they are referred to as a prostitute. The woman is drunk with the blood of the saints. Death and martyrdom of the saints. Lucifer's main objectives are to gain control on a global scale and destroy the saints in the process. The great prostitute will be punished by God. She is the great city. She rides and directs the beast. She is the bride or harlot of Lucifer, his one-world governing system, contrary to the saints, the bride of Jesus.
Make every effort to enter through the narrow door, because many, I tell you, will try to enter and will not be able to. Once the owner of the house gets up and closes the door, you will stand outside knocking and pleading, "Sir, open the door for us." But he will answer, "I don't know you or where you come from." Then you will say, "We ate and drank with you and you taught in our streets." But he will reply, "I don't know you and where you come from. Away from me, all you evildoers." I don't know you and where you come from.
I just want the cheese and bologna. I just want the money, not the money. You can translate to try to relate. Can you navigate or you get led astray? To have all the wealth, we can make it through the needle. Or will the camel at the finish line be there to beat you? Who is he who gained the world just to lose his soul? You like so look when Bruce Lee were even he had the glow. 12 times 12,000, 144. It's not that we perfect, we just figured out what's the role. They committing espionage on the other side. Try to get close to you so they can flip the light. Could've swore they was your bestie till you lost the trust. Watch all those who use they lefty, they be crooked crooks. Could've swore they just don't wanna see you make it up. I got one in the helping hand just like my father would. Show you better side, sometimes seem like it ain't no good. Cause some people just try to seem to wanna have you too. At first you try to act like you ain't know me.
I don't know you
Man, God, I swear these
and where you come from. Away from me, all you evildoers.
cheese and bologna. I just want the money, not the honey.
Milk the honey.
Not the honey, not the honey. Yeah, I got it on my side, this ain't anything. But you try to act like you ain't know me.
I don't know you